Chapter 2083. A battle to the last drop of blood. Moreover, the supreme god kings who arrived later brought with them some news. Not only did many people on the 10th floor learn about the girl protected by the world, but even the experts on the 11th floor had learnt of this news as well. The news directly spread towards the 12th floor. In short, Xiaoman's existence had shaken up the entire Neptunian divine palace. The more regular god kings who did not possess particularly outstanding strength eyed the chaotic prime's legacy and all the god-tier heavenly resources on Jian Chen. As for the supreme god kings, they all targeted Xiaoman. The fact that Xiaoman was able to receive the protection of the world prompted many thoughts in all the supreme god kings as they all reached various possible conclusions. Jian Chen and Kai Ya finally escaped from the 9th floor under the pursuit of so many god kings and returned to the 8th floor. The 8th floor was a huge world of volcanoes. Below them was an endless stretch of volcanoes and red-hot lava that formed oceans. They radiated with terrifying heat. The lava was so hot that it could easily melt supreme quality saint artifacts. Even some god artifacts of poorer quality would not be able to last for too long in the lava. It was extremely terrifying. Pieces of black rocks of various sizes floated in the lava like islands. They never melted nor did they sink, enduring the terrifying heat of the lava the entire time. These black rocks were god-tier materials, perlite ore, and they were high-quality god-tier materials. They were extremely valuable, enough for countless people to grow envious over, but no one was able to even take away a tiny piece of it, supreme god kings included. Right now we only have one path of retreat, and that's the sea of lava. Jian Chen hovered in the air as he stared at the lava sternly. The lava was extremely terrifying, hot enough to burn worlds. When his chaotic body was still at the 11th layer, he could not approach the sea of lava at all. All he could do was look at it from afar. Now, even after reaching the 12th layer, he still did not have complete confidence that his body would be able to endure the might of the lava. Quick! Enter the tower. The tower should be able to keep us safe in the lava. Jian Chen immediately took out the Anata Tower. Under his control, it suddenly expanded and hovered in the air. Its broken door opened as he urged Kai Ya. Kai Ya knew that time was tight, so she did not hesitate at all. She immediately wanted to enter the tower. However, at this moment, a terrifying pulse of energy appeared behind her. A huge pole extended from the distance, where it was several dozen kilometers long as it smacked towards Jian Chen with terrifying force. A supreme god king had come down from the 9th floor to the 8th floor and had attacked Jian Chen without any hesitation at all. God artifact. Jian Chen's face changed slightly as he recognized the long pole to be a god artifact as well in a single instance. Moreover, due to the fact that the wielder was a true supreme god king, the might of the god artifact had completely exceeded Mr. Shu's cataclysmic onyx wind fan. Jian Chen was stern. He circulated his chaotic force as he suddenly stabbed out to block the pole. Boom! With that, Jian Chen's body shook violently. The force in the pole was far greater than he had imagined. Right now, he only felt his entire right arm grow numb as a supreme power moved through his arm and spread through his body. He felt like all his bones were about to shatter. Suddenly, an azure streak of light shot over. A flying sword shot towards Kai Ya with a long azure tail of light. Following the sword were 5 other powerful attacks that targeted Jian Chen and Kai Ya. The 7 supreme god kings had already come down from the 9th floor, and they struck out mercilessly. Behind the 7 of them was a great group of god kings with various strength. They surged in all directions, tightly enclosing Jian Chen and Kai Ya. Jian Chen became extremely grim. The attacks of these supreme god kings were just too powerful. Even with a chaotic body, he needed to avoid these people as opponents, not to mention that there were even people among them with god artifacts. However, he could not flee or avoid them in the current situation. Without any other choice, he moved the Anata Tower before him to block the attacks. Boom! With a deafening rumble, the attacks of the supreme god kings all landed on the Anata Tower. The terrifying storm of energy caused the lava below to churn as many volcanoes in the surroundings immediately erupted. The Anata Tower stood unwavering in the sky, without moving at all. The attacks of the supreme god kings were indeed very terrifying, but they were nowhere close to shaking the Anata Tower. Get in there! Jian Chen called out. The situation was urgent right now, so he grabbed Kai Ya by the shoulder forcefully and tossed her in there. The 7 supreme god kings had already approached him now, and they surrounded Jian Chen. Every single one of them radiated with tremendously terrifying presences that surged into the sky. They were extremely powerful. Jian Chen. We only want the girl. If you hand over the girl, there won't be any trouble for you, said a woman among the 7 people. Her voice was cold and possessed an irrefutable sense of prestige. The 7 of them maintained a certain distance from Jian Chen as they all remained cautious and vigilant inside. Clearly, they were preparing themselves for Jian Chen's profound sword qi. However, the 7 people were not on the same side. They were not a united group. When the woman spoke, a black-clothed, cold-faced man swung his black metal pole from several kilometers away. The pole suddenly expanded by 10 kilometers and struck towards Jian Chen mercilessly with the might of a god artifact and surging energy. A member of our Bai clan was killed in the divine medicinal garden. Whether this person hands over the girl or not, he will die, the pole-wielding man said coldly with killing intent. A cold light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. He did not use the Anata Tower to block the strike. Instead, he used the second strand of profound sword qi without any hesitation at all. As soon as the profound sword qi appeared, it turned into a blinding streak of white light as it shot towards the man with terrifying sword intent that was enough to shake up the world. As soon as the profound sword qi appeared, the supreme god kings showed angst. Even though it was not directed towards them, they did not dare to be careless. They could not help but retreat even further away from the several kilometers they maintained from Jian Chen initially. Song Ying, who had personally witnessed the might of the profound sword qi, showed even more fear. With a flash, he instantly retreated to over 100 kilometers away. The eyes of the man with the pole suddenly narrowed while his god artifact that targeted Jian Chen changed its trajectory in that instance. He wanted to disperse the profound sword qi as he retreated. However, the profound sword qi was just too fast. Distance seemed to be non-existent before it, where even though they were separated by several kilometers, it seemed like he was only inches away for the profound sword qi, which was nothing at all. His metal pole was unable to block it in time. At that critical moment, a suit of armor appeared on the man, covering his body completely. This was a supreme quality saint artifact. He wanted to block the profound sword qi with that. However, the profound sword qi was no regular sword qi. It was a sword technique the old master of the sword spirits created, and it was one that had reached the peak of god tier. It borrowed from the mysteries of the world, condensed from the laws of the sword combined with human vitality, so its way of damaging people was different. It directly ignored the saint artifact and punched through his armor and into his soul. Arg! The man could not help but wail out as his soul suffered unimaginable damage at that moment. He directly fell out of the sky as he endured the excruciating pain in his soul. Just when the man was about to fall into the lava, a god king from the Bai clan flew over from behind and caught him. What a terrifying secret technique! Aside from Cong Ying, the 5 other supreme god kings all experienced chills. The profound sword qi was far more terrifying than they had imagined it to be. Chapter 2084. Falling into the lava. Jian Chen also tottered. He had experienced battle after battle, and now, he had shot out 2 strands of profound sword qi as well, greatly depleting the power of his soul. The dizziness in his head became stronger. Suddenly, a terrifying dark whirlwind swept in. As terrifying wind blades, it revolved around Jian Chen, slicing bone-deep wounds on his body. Mr. Xu had also come down to the 8th floor. He stood in the distance as he used the origin energy he had just managed to recover to power the cataclysmic onyx wind fan. He took advantage of the situation to attack Jian Chen as he called out at the same time, "Jian Chen is already very weak. I'm certain that he can't use a 3rd strand of that sword qi, so why don't you attack him?" Mr. Xu naturally hoped that Jian Chen could die there. The battle prowess he had displayed was just too terrifying, where it sent chills down Mr. Xu's spine. He would definitely become a huge problem for the Sky Empire. The 6 supreme god kings all struck out together to kill Jian Chen. Energy pulses swept out in the surroundings, creating huge waves in the lava below and causing it to splash in the sky. Many volcanoes erupted and spurted with lava and fire divine crystals. In that instance, Jian Chen became heavily injured. Blood spurted out of his mouth as mist, filling the sky. If it were not for his chaotic body, he probably would have died long ago. Ugh! Jian Chen bellowed out as his hair fluttered without any wind. He seemed to have gone mad as he unleashed his full strength, fighting the 6 opponents all by himself. He had no time to enter the Anata Tower at all under the pincer attacks of the 6 supreme god kings. He wanted to use the Anata Tower against his opponents, but the tower was still sealed up by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt, so its powers were limited. It would be of some use against the formations in the Divine Medicinal Garden, but against powerful and experienced Supreme God Kings, it struggled to pose a real threat. Heavens, 6 Supreme God Kings are working together against him, yet he is still managing to last for a while, without dying immediately. Jian Chen is just far too tenacious. Even if Jian Chen dies here in this battle, his name will be remembered by many people. In the surroundings, several hundred God Kings witnessed this brutal battle. They all could not help but gasp and feel extremely great shock. Jian Chen was soaked in blood while the wounds on his body were vicious and terrifying. His chest had been pierced, leaving behind a visible hole through his body. He was heavily injured. Spurt. A sword stabbed out with lightning speed and into Jian Chen's waist, penetrating his body completely. At the same time, Jian Chen used his sword to stab a Supreme God King's throat, almost cutting his head off. Jian Chen was unable to escape against the encirclement of the 6 Supreme God Kings. He could only engage in a battle to the death. Jian Chen unleashed all the potential in his body when he faced such dire straits. His battle performance was extraordinary, injuring all 6 Supreme God Kings. Suddenly, an evil presence radiated from Jian Chen. Jian Chen's pupils had actually become blood red at a certain moment, where even his black hair turned red at a visible rate. It was like it had been dyed by blood. Jian Chen had been repeatedly injured. Coupled with the depletion of the power of his soul, he finally was unable to suppress the evil power any longer. It replaced his consciousness and took over his body, causing him to lose his mind. Immediately, a ruthless, destructive presence began to radiate from Jian Chen as a faint layer of red mist circulated around him. The presence was so evil that it caused the expressions of many of the surrounding God Kings to change. Even the 6 Supreme God Kings became grim. After losing his mind, Jian Chen had clearly become even more terrifying. He did not feel pain, nor did he fear death. He was like a god of death that only knew how to destroy and kill. The blood-red mist around him controlled an extremely evil power as he fought everyone around him. He can actually devour my origin energy and power of laws. How is this possible? What is this evil power? It can even devour the power of laws. This shouldn't be possible. The 6 Supreme God Kings all cried out when they fought Jian Chen, who had lost his mind. Surprise filled their faces. Naturally, they did not know that after losing his mind, Jian Chen seemed to have become the evil spirit. Hence, the power he used was naturally the evil spirit's. The evil spirit was also known as the crisis of the world. It was born to destroy and devour all things, including the laws of the world and worlds themselves. It was extremely terrifying. Quick, use your full strength and kill him. A Supreme God King called out. The evil power that Jian Chen used right now made all of them shiver. Immediately, the 6 of them struck out with their full force at the same time. Coupled with Mr. Shu's assistance from one side, Jian Chen was struck out of the sky, directly falling into the lava below. In the end, he was swallowed up by the red-hot lava. However, the 6 of them had paid a certain price as well. The mindless Jian Chen had injured all of them, and they had all been reduced to horrible shapes as they suffered from wounds of various degrees. The Anata tower in the air that lost Jian Chen's control began to fall out of the sky as well. A gleam of light flashed through Cong Ying's eyes as he looked at the tower. He arrived beside it in a flash in an attempt to take it away. However, his face changed very quickly. The Anata tower was just too heavy. Not only was his strength not enough to stop it from falling, but he was even dragged down towards the lava as well. Cong Ying knew that Kai Ya and Xiao Man were in the Anata tower. Once the tower fell into the lava, it would be impossible for him to learn the secret technique of using laws from Kai Ya. Immediately he called out, "Quick, stop this tower from falling. The girl you want is in this tower. Don't let it fall in." The 5 other Supreme God Kings did not hesitate at all, arriving below the tower in a flash. They pressed their hands against the bottom in an attempt to stop it from falling. However, the outcome surprised them all. Just the weight of the tower alone made the Supreme God Kings feel like they could not fight it. Despite the combined efforts of the 6 Supreme God Kings, they still failed to stop the Anata tower from falling. Instead, they were pressed down towards the lava. Just what kind of god artifact is this tower? How is it so heavy? The complexions of the Supreme God Kings changed in shock. As they watched the lava grow closer and closer, they could only give up without any other choice, flying out from below the tower. In the end, the damaged tower fell into the churning lava under everyone's gazes. No one could stop it. We've spent so much effort to kill Jian Chen, yet I never thought it'd all be for nothing. We got nothing from it at all. The 6 god kings hovered in the air and stared at the churning lava blankly as they sighed. The lava below was extremely terrifying. Let alone them, but even infinite primes would not dare to enter it. It could melt weaker god artifacts, so in their eyes, there was no hope of retrieving the Anata tower once it had fallen in. They even believed that the tower would melt and become a part of the lava before too long. As for Jian Chen, they had already beaten him into the lava, so they were all certain that Jian Chen was dead, with no chance of him surviving at all. Sigh. Jian Chen only became a god king recently, yet he can match the supreme god kings from the god king's throne. If he had some more time and reached late god king, would he still have any opponents among god kings? Yeah. If Jian Chen was a peak god king, he could probably challenge first place on the god king's throne. Killing infinite primes would not even be a problem. Jian Chen is far too powerful. Including Gong Zhang, there were a total of 8 supreme god kings, yet 2 of them suffered heavy injuries to their souls, while the remaining 6 suffered injuries of various degrees as well. A supreme god king who has yet to truly rise up died just like this. What a pity. What a pity. Although the battle on the 8th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace had ended, the god kings around refused to leave. They all stared at where Jian Chen had fallen into the lava as they shook their heads and sighed. Jian Chen was already dead. In their eyes, this was an indisputable fact. Even though they did not see his corpse, and no one personally saw his soul being wiped out, it was impossible for him to survive once he fell into the lava. In the distance, the 5th prince of the Sky Empire was overjoyed. Finally, the matter occupying his mind had vanished. As for Yun Xin, she entered a low period of silence. She was depressed. The god kings of the Yun family also stared at where Jian Chen had fallen as they sighed in pity inside. Jian Chen had just become a god king, yet he could fight supreme god kings. This unrivaled battle prowess was supposed to make its way across the saint's world and make him a resplendent star that shook up the entire world, where he would be revered. However, he experienced a battle of completely different cultivation levels, and he died in the end, which all made them feel pity. Before long, more supreme god kings arrived on the 8th floor. After learning about what had happened, many of them sighed, feeling pity for the death of a prodigy like Jian Chen. The Neptunian Divine Palace had a total of 12 floors. The highest was the 12th floor, and it was also the most important place in the entire place. This was because the 4 grand primes of the Taoist sect of Neptunia had all left their legacies on the 12th floor. The 12th floor was a place that everyone was eager to go to, but it was also a place countless people feared and would shy away from. Even some supreme god kings felt very deep fear towards the 12th floor and would not set foot there easily. It was not because of how many terrifying traps of death were there, but because every time the Neptunian Divine Palace opened, terrifyingly powerful supreme god kings would go there. Even infinite primes might die before these god kings. Before these people, even other supreme god kings would be placed under tremendous pressure, where they would not be willing to face them. The 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace was an idyllic world of water and mountains. However, the entire world was gloomy now, where only a huge full moon hung in the sky, shining with clear and gentle moonlight. 4 statues several hundred meters tall stood there. Every single one of them depicted a grand prime from the Taoist sect of Neptunia in the past. At the same time, the 4 statues symbolized 4 great legacies. Across the countless years, one of the 4 legacies had been taken away, so one of the statues was dull and no longer gave off any pulses of energy, unlike the 3 other stone statues that were covered by a layer of hazy light as they pulsed with powerful energy. Around the statues sat over 100 god kings. All of their eyes were closed, and they meditated like monks in an attempt to form a connection with the statues and gain their recognition for the Grand Prime's legacy. Not all of these people were supreme god kings from the god king's throne. There were also some regular god kings who took the risk and endured the tremendous mental pressure to stay there. They wanted to be blessed by the world and gain the favor of the grand primes of the Taoist sect of Neptunia, so that they could gain the legacy and rise up. I've just received news that a girl appeared on the 9th floor. She's not strong, only at the mortal realm, but apparently, she gained the protection of the world, where god kings are unable to harm her at all. At this moment, a piece of news rang out through the 12th floor, causing many god kings on the floor to open their eyes. I've never heard about someone gaining the protection of the world after entering the Neptunian Divine Palace. Something happened in the Neptunian Divine Palace just then, where the Neptunian moon that had vanished for a very long time appeared again. Now that a girl has received the protection of the world, are these two matters related? Countless years ago, a supreme expert foretold that when the Neptunian moon reappears, something big will happen to the Neptunian Divine Hall, except even that supreme expert struggled to foretell what it would be and whether it would be good or bad. Right now, when something is about to happen to the Neptunian Divine Palace, a girl becomes protected by the world. Surely the major change to the Neptunian Divine Palace is related to the girl. A discussion broke out on the 12th floor. Many god kings analyzed it and reached various conclusions. However, this clearly was not enough to raise the attention of everyone present. There were still over a dozen people who did not move at all after hearing the news. They remained seated there without moving at all. Among them was a god king who was completely covered in silver-white armor that only revealed her eyes. Although no one could see her face, it was quite evident that she was a female from the shape of her body. Although the woman did not give off any pressure at all, she gave off a cold presence that made everyone nearby shiver. No one could approach her. As a result, a range of several dozen meters around her was empty. No one dared to stay there. It said that an extremely impressive supreme prodigy appeared on the 9th floor. Not only did he harvest a quarter of all the heavenly resources in the divine medicinal garden, but the girl protected by the world was taken by him as well. Moreover, he had only become a god king recently, yet he could rival supreme god kings on the god king's throne. He even injured them. When this news rang out, it immediately caused a disturbance on the 12th floor. Many people showed disbelief, and even some supreme god kings on the god king's throne showed doubt. This was just too astonishing, to be able to fight supreme god kings while only having become a god king recently. It would even be described as frightful to the ear, so naturally, many people refused to believe it. You don't believe it? This is completely true. It has already spread like wildfire on the floors below. It said that this person is called Jian Chen, a completely unknown name. Before he became a god king, he unleashed his might in the divine medicinal garden and slaughtered many god kings. Now that he has broken through, his strength became even more astonishing. He completely had the power to challenge supreme god kings, making him extremely terrifying. Chapter 2086. The mysterious woman Jian Chen? Who's that? Why have I never heard of him before? And that name doesn't seem to be on the Overgod's plaque. Many people memorized Jian Chen's name, except all of them found it to be extremely unfamiliar. However, when the woman in silver-white armor seated on the ground heard the name, her body trembled inconspicuously. Her eyes snapped open as a sliver of shock appeared in her cold eyes. Jian Chen? Is it him? Has he also come to the saints' world and entered the Neptunian Divine Palace? Impossible. It can't be him. Only so long has passed, so how has he reached such a great level? The woman struggled to remain calm. Her heart churned. Afterwards, she stared at the person who spoke and asked in a cold and emotionless voice, "Does this Jian Chen comprehend the laws of the sword?" The god king was stared at by the woman from a very long way away, and he immediately felt chills run down his spine as if his blood had frozen. Immediately, he did not dare to tarry, telling her in a hurry, "That's right. According to what I know, this Jian Chen did indeed comprehend the laws of the sword. However, his truly powerful aspect was not the laws of the sword, but the extremely great power he controlled. This power eliminated his difference with supreme god kings, allowing him to fight them despite only having become a god king recently." An extremely great power? Is it really him? After hearing that, a gleam of light flashed through the woman's eyes as she became surprised and doubtful. Afterwards, she stood up from the ground, and under the fearful gazes of many god kings, she left the 12th floor. So scary. Who is that woman? She just glanced at me, and it sent chills running down my spine. Even my blood stopped flowing smoothly. The god kings wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead as he felt lingering fear after the woman had left. The woman in silver-white armor moved extremely quickly. She directly made her way to the 9th floor, and after spending a moment there, she made her way to the 8th floor, to the world of volcanoes. She concealed her presence and moved around silently like a ghost. Many people failed to sense her arrival. Only when she appeared where Jian Chen had fallen into the lava did she raise the attention of everyone present. This was because it was difficult for her to not become the center of attention at that moment. The lava on the 8th floor was extremely hot. God Kings could only hover several thousand meters above it, and they would never descend any lower. Even the 6 supreme God Kings who fought Jian Chen were only able to descend to an altitude of over 30 meters. Any lower and even they would not be able to withstand the terrifying heat. However, the woman directly approached the surface of the lava right now. Her feet were only 3 inches from the terrifying lava, making it seem like she was standing there from afar, completely unafraid of the terrifying heat. This sight shocked all the God Kings gathered in the area. The supreme God Kings who had fought with Jian Chen did not leave either. They all stared at the snow-white figure who seemed to stand on the lava below in shock as disbelief flooded their faces as well. Who is she? At that moment, the entire 8th floor fell dead silent. Everyone stared at the figure as they thought of the same thing. This person is so powerful, where she can directly approach the surface of the lava. Looking at how confident she seems, it is clearly extremely easy for her to do that. Is she a primordial realm expert? People conversed secretly in great shock. Impossible. Primordial realm experts can't enter the Neptunian divine palace. The woman did not even glance at the God Kings above. She stood where Jian Chen had fallen in as if she was standing on the lava. Her feet were only 3 inches away from the churning lava as she stared below without blinking at all. It was like she was looking through the lava in search of something. Only after 4 hours did she give up on her search. She thought, Jian Chen, I know you're still alive. It's impossible for you to die here, or you would not have the right to become a successor of a grand exalt from the immortals' world. I will look for you when you appear again. The woman suddenly vanished silently, leaving no traces behind. Just like when she came, she left without anyone noticing. No one noticed how she had left either. She was truly like a ghost. So powerful. Her strength must have reached an astonishing level, Song said sternly as he floated in the sky. The woman from before clearly did not give off any pressure, but he felt extremely pressured, and it made him shiver as if he faced a primordial realm expert. Who is she? She's so powerful. Is she ranked in the top 3 of the God King's throne? Or maybe she even holds first place. Or, she has never attempted the God King's throne, so she never left her name on there? Another supreme God King said. They were also grim. They all knew every single name on the God King's throne very well, but it was only the names. Their grasp over the other information was limited. Only with supreme God Kings who often made public appearances and were extremely well known would they be able to identify them through their unique physical features, or even their cultivation method and personality. No one knew the identity of the woman who had appeared just then. Even from her unique features, it was difficult to tell. This was because they did not know the gender of many of the names engraved on the God King's throne. In the current Saints world, many major organizations outside the Neptunian Divine Palace had learnt that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace had awakened. This news immediately interested the people in charge of many powerful organizations because the awakening of the artifact spirit meant that a new master for the Neptunian Divine Palace would be chosen. Not only was the Neptunian Divine Palace a high-quality god artifact, but there were items that even powerful organizations that stood at the very apex of the world coveted in there. As a result, as soon as the news broke out, all the major organizations got into action. They basically sent all their talented God Kings rushing to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Some of the supreme God Kings on the God King's throne that belonged to an organization were called on by their respective clans or sects, and they were all sent into the Neptunian Divine Palace. The current Neptunian Divine Palace had truly become a gathering place of experts. The fight among the supreme God Kings had become the center of attention of all major organizations. This was because the opening of the Neptunian Divine Palace was not as simple as a fight for Grand Prime's legacies. It was a battle for the ownership of a divine hall that tied into many matters. This was all because the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace had awakened. As a result, basically half of all the supreme God Kings on the God King's throne had headed into the Neptunian Divine Palace. The God Nigma Plain was a rather well-known plain out of the 49 of the Saints' world because it was where the God clans stood. It was also where the headquarters of the God clan was located. The entire plain was under the God clan's rule, where even though there were many forces that were not a part of the God clan, they still followed the God clan. This was because the God clan was a peak clan in the Saints' world. They were once the undisputed most powerful clan and organization in the entire Saints' world when the war god was still alive. Even though the war god had died, the god clan was still extremely glorious and did not decline. Not only was all this because of their extensive heritage, but there was another more important reason, and that was war gods would appear one after another. When the war god of one generation died, a new war god would be born after several tens of thousand years or over 1,000,000 years. This would continue onwards. No one knew how many generations of war gods there had been. Moreover, there would only be a single war god with each generation, where there would never be two war gods coexisting at the same time. Right now, within the majestic war god hall within the headquarters of the god clan, a burly young man with golden skin sat high up on the central throne. Below him, over a dozen members of the god clan of various ages had gathered. They all stood there politely. These people were the upper echelon of the god clan. They possessed great status and authority. Outside, they would all be considered as supreme experts who could reign over a major region. However, every single of them were well behaved as they stood below the burly young man who was clearly not even at the primordial realm. If Jian Chen were present, he would definitely recognize the young man with a single glance. He was the friend that he had gone through thick and thin with, who he had not seen for many years, Tai Ta. Although Tai Ta still had not reached the primordial realm, the god clan was unique. His bloodline from the warring gods clearly gave him a status that did not match up to his personal strength at all. He had become the king of the god clan, the leader of the clan, where he possessed absolute authority. Any slight action from him could shake up the saints' world. Your Majesty, the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace has awakened, and it is about to gain a new master. I was wondering whether our god clan should take part or not. A middle-aged man below Tai Ta clasped his hands and said politely, "In our god clan, who are the most powerful god kings?" Tai Ta sat on the throne as he said in a dignified manner. Our god clan currently occupies 3 ranks on the god king's throne. The strongest is still Adriana. Adriana has already recovered her body, and although she has not reached the primordial realm yet, the 3,000,000 years she spent in the lower world allowed her strength to become even greater, an old man said below. "Summon Adriana for me." "You are all dismissed," said Tai Ta. "Yes, Your Highness." The people in the hall all bowed before leaving as quickly as possible. In the blink of an eye, only Tai Ta was left seated on the throne within the entire hall. Before long, a beautiful woman in a green dress made her way into the war god hall politely. She only seemed to be in her 20s. "Adriana greets Your Majesty." Adriana dropped to one knee and lowered her head towards Tai Ta. This woman was the greatest god king of the god clan. She was the one who had her body destroyed by Xue Yunlan, only leaving her soul behind, which transformed into the elven god tree from her brimming vitality in the lower world, Adriana. Adriana was the person who received the current war god, having waited over 3,000,000 years painstakingly before taking the current war god up to the saints' world. At the same time, when the Tian Yuan clan faced the crisis of the world, and they were just about to all be destroyed, it was Adriana who had stepped forward, sacrificing 30% of her vitality to stop the crisis and make time for Jian Chen and the others. Only then did Jian Chen completely destroy the crisis with the assistance of the various experts of the world of Forsaken Saints. It could even be said without any exaggeration that it was all because of Adriana that everything in the Tian Yuan continent's world was still alive right now. Otherwise, even with the primordial god Silk, Jian Chen would not have been able to eliminate the evil spirit completely. The final outcome would have been the destruction of the world, where both the 4 great races and the world of Forsaken Saints would have gone extinct. Now, Adriana had recovered her body that Xue Yunlan had destroyed after returning to the god clan in the Saints' world. Not only was she back at peak condition, but the time she had spent in the lower world had even allowed her strength to become far greater than the past. When Tai Ta looked at Adriana, his gaze became gentle. He would never forget the assistance that Adriana had provided to him back on the Tian Yuan continent. Even though Tai Ta had become the supreme king of the god clan now, possessing unrivaled authority, he still remembered the kindness that Adriana had shown in the past. "Adriana, do you still remember that brother of mine from the lower world?" Tai Ta asked Adriana. "Your Majesty, are you talking about Jian Chen? He possesses unprecedented talent and is an astonishing prodigy." "I naturally remember him," said Adriana. When she thought of Jian Chen back on the Tian Yuan continent, she could not help but sigh in amazement. Jian Chen's talent was so great that describing it as unprecedented would not be an exaggeration. Even Adriana admired it very much as the greatest god king of the god clan, and someone who had seen the many prodigies of the saints' world. Memories flashed through Tai Ta's eyes as his face became filled with reminiscence. He said, Jian Chen and I are brothers for life, but ever since coming to the Saints' world, I've lost all contact with him. I don't have any news about him either. However, with my brother's talent and capability, even if he still hasn't come to the Saints' world, it'll probably be soon. Or maybe he's already somewhere in the Saints' world. Adriana, as the only person in the current God clan that has seen my brother, I'll leave the mission of searching for my brother up to you, Tai Ta said sternly. Your Majesty, since you want to know Jian Chen's whereabouts, why not ask the Hall Elders to try to predict it? With their abilities, predicting Jian Chen's whereabouts is nothing difficult, said Adriana. The Hall Elders were figures that held great authority in the God clan. Every single one of them possessed extremely terrifying cultivations. They were all people who stood at the apex of the world. Tai Ta shook his head. There's no need to trouble the Hall Elders. I'm worried that they'll find out about even more information. Adriana, go find Jian Chen personally. Handle this by yourself and don't bring anyone else with you. Do not disclose the 2 swords on Jian Chen to anyone in the God clan either. Tai Ta paused before continuing. I know that the Saints' world is vast and finding my brother is 1,000 times more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. However, the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace has awakened now, and the talents of various organizations will be gathering there. You can go to the Neptunian Divine Palace first to get to know them and use the power they can supply to search for my brother. You need to make them all understand that Jian Chen is an esteemed guest of my God clan. With the clan's prestige, I believe that all the people who learn of this will take good care of Jian Chen once they meet him. As for the secret of the 2 swords, I can tell that they're related to major matters from how he asked me to keep it a secret in the lower world. He probably is keeping it a secret. Of course, if you find out that the secret of the 2 swords has been exposed, execute everyone who knows without hesitation before the secret spreads. Tai Ta ordered Adriana seriously. Yes, Adriana understands what to do. Adriana departed with the orders. She left the Godnigma place with the trust of the king of the God clan and began to search for Jian Chen. Due to Tai Ta's orders, Adriana set out all by herself, without bringing anyone with her. Otherwise, there would be a great group of guards wherever she went as the greatest God King of the God clan. There would even be primordial realm experts who would follow her secretly. Clearly, Tai Ta already knew what Jian Chen's twin swords represented, but this did not affect their relationship. His arrangements this time were also to prevent members of the God clan apart from himself and Adriana from approaching his brother and discovering the existence of the twin swords. Chapter 2088. The Taoist sect of Divine Sound. The Skyfire Plain was a relatively well-known place in the Saints' world out of the 49 Great Plains. Compared to the Cloud Plain, the Skyfire Plain was on a separate level both in terms of overall strength and renown. This was because the Skyfire Plain had once given birth to a famed expert. This person's cultivation neared the peak of perfection, and was so powerful that she was an existence that could make the expression of all the grand primes in the past change whenever she was mentioned. Not only was she known as one of the most powerful people below Grand Exalt in the past, but her grasp over the way of music had reached an unbelievable level. She used the zither of the demonic cry that was renowned throughout the Saints' world, creating the 2 tunes of the demonic and divine. With the divine tune, the zither of the demonic cry could conduct the mysteries of the world and intervene with the functions of the laws of the world. With the demonic tune, the zither of the demonic cry could enchant the souls of all living things and kill unknowingly. It could control the minds of grand primes, or even make their expressions change when they heard it. No one knew the name of this supreme expert. They only knew that she came from the divine sect of Divine Sound of the Skyfire Plain and was known as the 3rd ancestor. Her name had shaken up the Saints' world, and she was a superpower that stood at the peak of the Saints' world. And because of her existence, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound became the greatest organization on the Skyfire Plain, possessing an extremely great status. However, good things never lasted. After the 3rd ancestor died over 3 million years ago, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound lost the right to hold that name. It was replaced by other organizations. This was because the glory of the sect was brought on by the 3rd ancestor alone. Without her, not only did the Taoist sect of Divine Sound lose the right to hold that name with their heritage, but a certain distance even existed between it and the other peak organizations of the Skyfire Plain. However, even with that being the case, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound possessed a certain amount of status on the Skyfire Plain. They were one of the large organizations there. Even though the current Taoist sect of Divine Sound had fallen from the pedestal of the greatest organization, they still received the respect of many peak organizations on the plane due to the influence of the third ancestor when she was still alive. Right now, a perfect beauty in a purple dress who seemed even prettier than goddesses sat on the peak of a mountain shrouded by mist. It was a picturesque scene. The woman only seemed to be in her 20s. Not only was her appearance so beautiful that it was enough to suffocate people, but her otherworldly presence made her seem like a goddess who did not tamper with mortal affairs. Her enchanting eyes were fixed on the zither placed across her knees. With her close concentration, she played a beautiful tune as her slender hands pulled the strings gently. This beautiful woman was Shangguan Mu'er. Due to the zither of the demonic cry, Shangguan Mu'er had shaken up the entire upper echelon of the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. She had even alerted the ancestors of the sect who had been in seclusion for several hundreds of thousand years, causing them to emerge as soon as possible. This was because the zither of the demonic cry was a treasure bound to the third ancestor's life. Ever since she died, the zither had vanished. As a result, when Shangguan Mu'er appeared in the sect with the zither of the demonic cry, the entire upper echelon believed she had received the legacy of the third ancestor right from the beginning. With the status as the successor of the third ancestor, Shangguan Mu'er possessed an extremely special and revered identity in the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. She had even received the personally nurturing of the ancestors, where her status was only second to the sect master. At this moment, an extremely handsome and graceful man appeared behind Shangguan Mu'er. The man was in white robes. He held a jade flute that had images of dragons and phoenixes carved into it. The man had arrived silently, standing several meters away as he stared at Shangguan Mu'er's back. Love and infatuation filled his eyes. Afterwards, the man placed the jade flute to his mouth elegantly and began to play it to Shangguan Mu'er's melody. He blew it gently. The man clearly possessed great mastery over music. As soon as he played the flute, it merged perfectly with the zither music, making it gentle and pleasant. It was music that penetrated the mind and could bring comfort to people from the bottom of their hearts. With a zither and a flute, the two musical instruments resonated with each other. Anyone would believe that they were a match made in heaven with a single glance, enough for anyone to feel admiration. However, this did not last. The moment the flute rang out, the zither suddenly stopped. Only the gentle, pleasant flute music rang out and echoed in the mountains. Shangguan Mu'er had stopped playing. She frowned. "Senior Kong, why have you come here?" Shangguan Mu'er's voice was cold and emotionless. It made her seem unapproachable. The man was called Jun Kong, and his master was one of the four ancestors of the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. His talent was astonishing. Not only was he a resplendent star in the sect, but he was also one of the supreme prodigies of the Skyfire plane. Moreover, Jun Kong had firmly embedded his name on the God King's throne 100 years ago, making him an undisputable supreme God King. Jun Kong did not continue playing his flute when he saw Shangguan Mu'er stop. He looked at her back gently as he said softly, "Junior Mu'er, why have you suddenly stopped? The scenery here is so beautiful, like heaven on earth. Why don't we play together and make this heavenly place even more charming with our way of sound? I like to be alone and not be disturbed by anyone." "Senior Kong, please return," Shangguan Mu'er said coldly without even looking back. Jun Kong did not leave. He stared at Shangguan Mu'er's back deeply. There were mixed feelings within his deep love. He sighed gently. "Junior Mu'er, ever since you came to the Taoist sect of Divine Sound, I've never seen you smile before. Your face is always sunken as if something is weighing on your heart. Are you unable to forget that person on the distant cloud plane?" "That's my problem." "There's no need for Senior Kong to worry," said Shangguan Mu'er. "Junior Mu'er, if you really are still thinking of that person, I can only persuade you to forget about him as soon as possible because I've already received news that this person called Jian Chen is dead. He died to the hands of the Empyrean demon cult, where his soul was wiped out," said Jun Kong. Shangguan Mu'er shuddered from that as she began to tremble uncontrollably. Her beautiful face paled, and after a moment of silence by herself, she murmured with a trembling voice, "Impossible. That's impossible. He can't have died. This news must be fake." Although I haven't left the Skyfire plane recently, I do know many descendants and disciples of large clans and sections. I've heard this from them, so it's completely true, without any falsehood at all, said Jun Kong. Chapter 2089. The Ancestors Summoning, Impossible. That's impossible. It can't be true. Shangguan shook her head gently. She was dejected as evident sorrow filled her face. Although she did not believe Jun King much at all, she could not help but think about when Jian Chen had gone missing during the battle between the Empyrean demon cult and the divine kingdom of Ping Tian in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. The battle was undoubtedly intense. Even god kings that possessed supreme battle prowess in the divine kingdom of Ping Tian could die. If god kings hunted down Jian Chen, given his strength as an over-god, it would truly be grim for him. He would face the danger of dying. Subconsciously, Shangguan believed something that she did not wish to see had happened to Jian Chen in the battle between the divine kingdom of Ping Tian and the Empyrean demon cult. Shangguan closed her eyes painfully. She was in deep grief. Her mood seemed to affect the vegetation in the surroundings, causing the soft green grass in the surroundings of the mountain peak to lose their luster at that moment as if they were grieving as well. Junior Muir, you should forget about that person. Even if he was still alive right now, he's not worthy of you. Jun Kong stood beside Shangguan and said softly as gentleness filled his eyes. He was secretly overjoyed. He had no idea who Jian Chen was, nor did he know anything about him. The news of Jian Chen's death before was a lie he had created. However, he had never thought it would affect Muir so much, almost to the point where she believed it to be true. I never thought a lie I just made up on the spot would plant the impression that Jian Chen is dead in Junior Muir's heart. I believe Jian Chen's importance to Junior Muir will gradually decrease as time goes on until it becomes completely diluted. Yep, I better seize this opportunity and leave behind an impression of me in Junior Muir's heart, Jun Kong secretly celebrated. He had already begun planning how to nurture his relationship with Junior Muir in the next few days so that she had him in her heart. Shangguan was talented, and her otherworldly presence was an irresistible temptation to ordinary men. Even Jun Kong, who held great status in the Taoist sect of divine sound and was loved by countless women, was deeply entranced by Shangguan falling in love with her at first sight. Moreover, Shangguan had gained the basic recognition of the zither of the demonic cry, and she would become an existence who would succeed the third ancestor, so it made Jun Kong fall deeper in love with her. Suddenly, Shangguan face froze, and she suddenly opened her eyes. Her sorrow disappeared in an instant as a breathtaking light shone in her eyes. She murmured, "No, he's not dead. He's not dead. Jian Chen is still alive. I can vaguely sense it. I can clearly sense he's somewhere distant." Shangguan voice was filled with joy. Jun Kong's face suddenly froze when he heard that. He stared at Shangguan in disbelief. Looking at her excitement and joy, Jun Kong's face immediately warped in an ugly manner. At that moment before, he had just managed to plant the impression that Jian Chen was dead in Shangguan heart. All he had to do was wait for this impression to grow, and she would completely forget about that person called Jian Chen. However, he had never thought that while Shangguan was grieving, she would sense Jian Chen blurrily, immediately destroying his lie. At that moment, Jun Kong only felt furious. It reached quite an indescribable degree. So what if he's still alive? He's a person of a completely different world compared to us. He's not worthy of Junior Muir. Someone as puny as him probably can't even make it into our sect, Jun Kong could not help but add. He felt deep envy towards Jian Chen as well as hidden resentment. He continued to scoff. Let alone making it into our sect. He probably can't even come to the Skyfire Plain. The Skyfire Plain is nowhere close to the Cloud Plain. Senior Jun Kong, you can look down on all the people in the world, but you can't look down on him. If I have to speak seriously, it should be me who's not worthy of him, not him being unworthy of me. As long as he has some time, I believe there's basically nothing he can't do in this world. Shangguan calmed down and said coldly. Isn't he just a mere over-god? Yet he's being praised like this by Junior Muir. I wonder if he has managed to leave his name on the over-god's plaque, said Jun Kong. The more Shangguan praised Jian Chen, the deeper his resentment for Jian Chen became. The ancestors have once said that first place on the God King's throne does not make you invincible among God Kings, and first place on the Overgod's plaque does not make you the best among all Overgods because there are some extremely impressive prodigies who do not value fame, so they never attempt the Overgod's plaque and the God King's throne, said Shangguan. She paused there and glanced at Jun Kong before continuing. However, with Jian Chen's talent, I believe he can definitely make it into the top 10 once he becomes a peak God King. Jun Kong's face sank. He was a supreme God King from the God King's throne. Even though he was ranked towards the bottom, he still took pride in it. Now that Shangguan Mu'er, someone he longed for, had told him to his face that the man she missed dearly was someone who could make it into the top 10 on the God King's throne, it was no different to a slap to his face. Jun Kong's handsome face paled in fury. Anger rose up inside him as his resentment towards Jian Chen reached its limit. It looks like I have to eliminate this Jian Chen to get Junior Mu'er. Jun Kong's eyes were cold as his heart was filled with killing intent. Jun Kong Mu'er, come see me immediately. At this moment, an obscure voice seemed to pass through the fabric of spacetime and rang out in Shangguan Mu'er and Jun Kong's heads. Jun Kong immediately revealed a polite expression when he heard that, while Shangguan Mu'er's expression became mixed. She felt gratitude towards the owner of the voice as well as discontent. Afterwards, the two of them left, heading straight into the depths of the Taoist sect of divine sound, a place that even core disciples could not set foot in. Within the forbidden grounds, there was a majestic divine hall that had 3 people seated in the air. Among the 3 people was a gray-haired old woman who seemed to be in her 20s, while the other 2 people were a man and a woman who seemed to be in their 30s. They kept their presences concealed right now, so they seemed extremely ordinary in appearance alone and were just like mortals. Disciple Jun Kong greets Master. Disciple Shangguan Mu'er greets the 3 ancestors. Shangguan Mu'er and Jun Kong stood politely below as they bowed. These 3 people were 3 of the 4 great ancestors of the Taoist sect of divine sound. They were the peak power of the sect. The 3 ancestors all looked at Shangguan Mu'er eagerly. Not only did they place all their hopes on Shangguan Mu'er, but even the wind ancestor who had been in seclusion for so long in an attempt to overcome a final bottleneck placed great hopes on her as well. This was because Shangguan Mu'er had gained the basic recognition of the zither of the demonic cry. If nothing went wrong, she would become the successor of the 3rd ancestor. Mu'er, has the artifact spirit of the zither of the demonic cry showed any signs of awakening? At this moment, the old woman seated in the center spoke. Her gaze was gentle and filled with care. Shangguan Mu'er shook her head gently and replied, Ancestor, the zither of the demonic cry remains the same as before. The old woman nodded gently and said, The zither of the demonic cry has been heavily damaged. Even though it seems fine on the surface, the artifact spirit is still slumbering. Awakening the artifact spirit will be difficult, and even if the artifact spirit does awaken, it'll be difficult for it to return to its peak condition in a short amount of time. Mu'er, we've summoned you here today because we remember a place that might assist the artifact spirit in awakening as quickly as possible. This place is the former divine hall of the Taoist sect of Neptunia, the Neptunian Divine Palace, said the old woman. Chapter 2090, The 9th Disciple 1. The man who seemed to be in his 30s said, Our Taoist sect of divine sound was once renowned throughout the saints' world due to the glory brought on by the 3rd ancestor, but after she passed away, we've declined. Our current status is not even a fraction of what it was in the past. But Mu'er, your appearance has brought hope to our sect, allowing us to see that we will shake up the saints' world once again in the future. This is all because you've obtained the 3rd ancestor's legacy. But if you want to inherit the legacy completely, the artifact spirit of the zither of the demonic cry must awaken completely, and then you can obtain the full legacy of the 3rd ancestor from there. As a result, awakening the artifact spirit is the most important matter both to you and the entire sect. The man sighed gently when he reached there. He said powerlessly, However, there's nothing in our sect that can awaken the artifact spirit of the zither of the demonic cry. The only method we can think of right now is in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Mu'er, the 3rd ancestor of the Taoist sect of divine sound, the woman who seemed to be in her 30s, looked at Shangguan Mu'er and said, The Neptunian Divine Palace opens once every 10,000 years, and it just happens to be open right now. Originally, we planned for you to go the next time it opened. We believe that with your talent and the unconditional support and nurturing of our sect, we could raise your strength to the level of Supreme God Kings in 10,000 years such that you would be without worries in the Neptunian Divine Palace. However, plans are never perfect. Now that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace has awakened, and a new master for the Divine Hall will be chosen, it'll probably be the last time the Neptunian Divine Palace opens. You cannot miss out on this opportunity. Ancestor, you want us to go to the Neptunian Divine Palace right now? Shangguan Mu'er asked. That's right. The Neptunian Divine Palace opens for a very short period each time, so if you want to make it in time, you need to use the teleportation formation across planes, said the central old woman. Then she said to the 2 ancestors, Lian Qi Guna, You know exactly how important Mu'er is to our Taoist sect of divine sound, so I'll leave the escorting up to you and your husband when you go to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Moreover, the Neptunian Divine Palace this time will be different. Many supreme prodigies will definitely be gathered in there. Although Mu'er has already become a god king from the sect's full support, she is still nowhere close to those supreme prodigies, so her safety in there will be handled by Jun Kong. With that, Jun Kong's face immediately lit up. He said in a hurry, "Please do not worry, Master and ancestors. In the Neptunian Divine Palace, disciple, I will definitely keep Junior Mu'er safe to the best of my abilities." All right. With Jun Kong going in again, we don't need to worry about Mu'er's safety too much in the Neptunian Divine Palace, said the man. He was Lien Qi as well as Jun Kong's master, one of the 4 ancestors of the Taoist sect of divine sound. Let's not tarry and set off right now. Gunnar stood up and glanced at Lien Qi gently before immediately leaving in a group of 4. At the same time, there was a gloomy space that never saw daylight elsewhere. The environment there was horrid, filled with swamps and poisonous insects. There were even abnormally powerful magical beasts and life forms of other races that darted about like shadows. Bloody slaughter happened everywhere. Currently, there was a young man soaked in blood within a forest in that space. He engaged in an intense battle against a huge golden ape that was 100 meters tall. He fought with great intensity, where each clash was like the collision of 2 huge meteorites. Deafening booms rang out with terrifying energy shockwaves. Whenever they clashed, it would carry an overwhelming amount of origin energy, leading to a destructive fight. The huge ape was covered in blood, where its thick, lustrous golden fur had been dyed red by blood. It roared out furiously and struck out time and time again in a battle to the death against the young man. The battle lasted for several hours. In the end, the young man produced a huge strand of sword chi that pierced the golden ape's head, bringing the battle to a close. After the battle ended, the young man knelt on one knee as he gasped for air. He murmured, "I never thought ancient great apes would actually be so powerful. It was just a young gold ape king, yet it was so difficult to deal with despite being at the same cultivation level. I really wonder just how terrifying dark gold apes will be. It's already very impressive that you could defeat a gold ape king of the ancient great apes. However, unless you rank within the top 10 on the God King's throne, you're nowhere close to being the opponent of a dark gold ape king of the ancient great apes. That is because their bloodline is so powerful that it's only a tad weaker than the warring gods." A woman's voice rang out of nowhere at this moment, reverberating across the entire world. With that, the gloomy world suddenly distorted heavily. The entire world actually faded away at a visible rate before completely vanishing in the end. It was replaced by a huge, empty space. The young man soaked in blood stood within that huge space. Tremendous, unimaginable formations filled the surroundings, where every line of inscription glimmered like the stars in the sky. However, the energy pulses they gave off were enough to destroy worlds. Even in the saint's world, this was a formation that had reached the very peak. The gloomy space before and the golden great ape had been conjured by the formation. Even though the world was fake, the battle was real, so the young man's blood did actually drip from his body while his wounds were real as well. It's just a pity that dark gold ape kings haven't appeared for several million years. The woman's voice rang out once again with pity. This time, the origins of her voice were no longer undetectable anymore. It had clearly originated from behind the young man. Several hundred meters behind the young man, a woman who only seemed to be in her 20s stood there in a red dress. Although she seemed like a mortal, without giving off any presence of possessing cultivation, her bearing was otherworldly. She possessed a beauty that was capable of outshining even the moon. The bloodied young man looked at the woman and snickered. He clasped his hands towards the woman and said, "Greetings, 8th Senior. Although you were brought up by Senior Bishing, you haven't been formally acknowledged as a disciple, so you're not exactly my junior. Clean yourself up immediately. Master wants to see you," the woman said to the young man before turning around and leaving. "Master wants to see me?" The young man blinked when he heard that. He wondered inside, "I've already been here for so long, but I've never seen Master. Let alone Master, I haven't seen anyone else apart from 8th Senior and that old man called Bishing. Moreover, that old man is not even a person. He's an artifact spirit. That old man called Bishing always praises how powerful Master is, but I've never seen Master before at all. I can finally see him now. If Master really is as powerful as that old man says he is, sending me back must be a piece of cake for him. Chapter 2091. The Ninth Disciple, 2. Before long, the young man had changed into a set of clean clothes. He put on snow-white robes and followed the woman in a red dress as he wandered inside. His wounds had recovered miraculously in that short amount of time, returning him to peak condition. The two of them remained silent along the way. In the end, the young man was brought into an extremely majestic hall under the lead of the woman. As soon as he entered the hall, the young man's heart suddenly shuddered. He studied the hall and showed a sliver of sternness. At that moment, he felt like he had arrived in a boundless universe as he stood in the hall, where he actually felt like he was insignificant. At the same time, there seemed to be a pressure that crushed down on his soul, causing it to tremble uncontrollably. Disciple by Rome greets Master. At this moment, the woman at the front dropped to the ground and bowed. Her voice was filled with respect. As for the young man, the tremendous presence of the hall seemed to steal his mind as soon as he entered the place. He had fallen into shock and became lost. Only when the woman's voice rang out did he suddenly snap back to his senses, immediately gazing over. To one end of the hall sat a figure on a throne. A thick layer of light conjured from laws radiated from the figure, causing the space to distort. It completely obscured the person's appearance, where even the person's body was reduced to a blur. This was what the young man had seen with his first glance. Just when he continued to study the person out of curiosity, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his eyes, forcing him to close them. Afterwards, his body directly dropped to his knees uncontrollably, astounding the young man. Disciple Ming Dong greets Master. The young man knelt on the ground as he brought his head down very low. He did not dare to raise his head to even glance at the person on the throne. He felt fear from his very soul when he faced the figure on the throne, where even his soul trembled. He firmly believed that even though he was no longer weak now, the person on the throne could kill him without attacking him at all. Just a glance would be enough. Unsurprisingly, the young man was Ming Dong, who had entered the 9th floor of the Anata Tower with Jian Chen, before being sent to the Saints' World by the projection of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. After arriving in the Saints' World, Ming Dong understood everything. He had been brought to the Saints' World all because of the handiwork of the heavenly palace of Bisheng's artifact spirit. Although the artifact spirit of the heavenly palace of Bisheng was located in the distant Saints' World, it possessed a connection with the projection on the 9th floor. After sensing Ming Dong's talent, it made a decision by itself to bring Ming Dong over through using up all the energy in the projection. Ming Dong, I still have not taken you in as a disciple, so calling me master is too soon, said the person on the throne. Their voice seemed to possess all the sounds in the world, making it impossible to tell whether they were male or female. There was only a sense of coldness and emotionlessness from the voice. However, you indeed have extraordinary talent with the laws of destruction. To be able to comprehend the laws of destruction to such a level in such a short amount of time, you indeed have the right to become my disciple. The figure continued emotionlessly with a dignified voice. I am the Anata Grand Prime, and I am willing to take you in as a formal disciple of mine today. Ming Dong, will you accept me as your master? Disciple is willing. Disciple Ming Dong greets Master. Ming Dong said politely. From today onwards, you are my 9th disciple, and you will inherit my way of destruction. Whether you can comprehend it to the limit will be up to your personal fortune, said the Anata Grand Prime. Extending a finger, a streak of light immediately shot into Ming Dong's forehead. Ming Dong quivered as he closed his eyes uncontrollably. The streak of light contained a tremendous amount of information. Even with the current strength of Ming Dong's soul, he was unable to digest it all in a short amount of time. After who knew how long, Ming Dong finally opened his eyes. He looked at the blurry Anata Grand Prime, who sat high up, and after hesitating for a while, he finally made up his mind. Master, Disciple has a request. Disciple knows that Master's abilities are boundless, so Disciple hopes that Master can send Disciple back to the world where Disciple came from because Disciple still has a friend that has gone through thick and thin with Disciple. Disciple hopes to take this brother to the Saints' World as well. I ask for your permission, Master. The brother you speak of is already in the Saints' World. If you want to find him, go to the Neptunian Divine Palace. By Rome, take your 9th junior there, said the Anata Grand Prime. Yes, Master. Bai Rong replied politely before leaving with Ming Dong. Ming Dong, on the other hand, had become lost. Some disbelief still lingered on his face. He had tried coming up with everything to return to the Tianyuan continent for Jian Chen, But he had never thought that he would learn that Jian Chen was already in the saint's world from his master, the Anata Grand Prime. 8th Senior. How does Master know about my brother? And how does Master know that my brother has already come to the saint's world? And how does Master know all this with so much certainty? Oh right, and what kind of place is the Neptunian Divine Palace? Ming Dong looked at Bai Rong in perplexion after leaving the hall. Bai Rong's expression did not change at all. She replied calmly, Master's cultivation realm has already reached an unbelievable level. Master stands supreme in this world, making Master an existence like the very laws of the world. All Master needs is a single thought, and Master can see through all the mysteries of the world, allowing Master to peer into both the past and the future. Learning where your brother is naturally a piece of cake. Whoa, Master is so powerful. In other words, in the entire Saint's world, or even the myriad of lower worlds, Master can find anyone with a single thought no matter how far away they are, even if they are separated by thousands of worlds, right? Ming Dong asked in shock. That's true towards some weaker existences. However, if it's other Grand Primes, there'll be many difficulties in finding them even with Master's abilities because experts like that can hide their traces, said Bai Rong. After formally becoming a disciple, Ming Dong's status was completely different from before. Bai Rong answered all of his questions. However, Ming Dong had also learned a shocking piece of news from Bai Rong. Of the 9 great disciples of the Anata Grand Prime, 4 were already dead. Only the 1st senior sister, 3rd senior brother, 5th senior brother, and 8th senior sister remained. 8th senior, may I ask what kind of palace the Neptunian Divine Palace is? Ming Dong asked. As soon as he thought about how Jian Chen was in there, he could not help but become emotional. He wanted to reunite with Jian Chen immediately. The Neptunian Divine Palace hasn't been very peaceful recently. Probably almost half of the kiddos from the God King's throne have gone there, Bai Rong murmured sternly. Then she looked at Ming Dong and said, 9th Junior, since you want to go to the Neptunian Divine Palace, allow me to accompany you. The Neptunian Divine Palace this time will be quite a good chance for you to train and see the outside world. On the 8th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace, Jian Chen's body floated in the scorching lava that could melt even low-quality god artifacts. His entire body was covered in lava as he slowly sank towards the bottom. Right now, Jian Chen was completely unconscious, so he had no idea that he currently faced unprecedented danger. The lava there was just too terrifying. Even items as tough as god artifacts could be broken down, let alone Jian Chen's body. Even though he had already reached the 12th layer of the chaotic body, his body was only as tough as supreme quality saint artifacts if his defenses were pushed to the maximum. Naturally, he was unable to keep himself safe in the lava. Moreover, he was currently unconscious. His body was not pumped full with chaotic force, so the defenses of his chaotic body had not been pushed to the maximum. As a result, in under 10 seconds of falling into the lava, his body had already been charred black. All of his skin had cracked completely. After Jian Chen spent 15 seconds in the lava, his body began to disintegrate away slowly, turning into ash and becoming a part of the red-hot lava. Moreover, as time went on, Jian Chen's body disintegrated faster and faster. If this continued, the lava would probably reduce Jian Chen's entire body to nothingness in under half a minute. In the end, his soul would be wiped out. Currently, Jian Chen faced great danger. If he was still conscious, there would be hopes of him escaping from the lava through the toughness of his chaotic body, but he just happened to be unconscious. Just as he faced this critical moment, the damaged Anata Tower appeared near Jian Chen, rapidly approaching him. Afterwards, Kai Ya, who was forcefully tossed inside by Jian Chen earlier, suddenly flew out of the tower with a barrier of energy, heading straight for Jian Chen. As soon as Kai Ya left the tower, the barrier of energy around her dimmed at a rapid pace. It only lasted for a moment before showing signs of shattering. However, Kaya moved extremely quickly. When the barrier of energy around her shattered, she had already grabbed Jian Chen's burning body successfully and returned to the Anata Tower with a flash. At that moment, if Jian Chen was still conscious, he would definitely be astounded because Kaya managed to move in and out of the Anata Tower as she wished without the permission of him, who was basically the de facto owner of the tower now. Kaya gently placed Jian Chen onto the ground on the 1st floor. When Jian Chen's body came in contact with the ground, the solid stone he touched immediately began to melt, forming a small pool of scorching lava. Jian Chen had just been pulled out of the lava. Naturally, he was still burning hot, so much so that he could even melt the tough rocks there. A sliver of worry appeared in Kai Ya's eyes when she looked at Jian Chen's wounds. After a moment of thought, she took out several god-tier heavenly resources from her space ring and ground a portion of them to dust before gently sprinkling a portion onto Jian Chen. She directly fed the other portion into Jian Chen's mouth. There was naturally no doubt about the efficacy of god-tier heavenly resources. Jian Chen's wounds immediately healed at a visible rate. His charred skin gradually recovered some of its normal color. This time, Jian Chen was extremely injured. Even with the heavenly resources and the regeneration of the chaotic body, it took him 3 whole days before he fully recovered. Even though the wounds to his body were healed now, Jian Chen remained unconscious. Zi Yun and Xiao Man had already arrived beside Jian Chen. They looked at him as they showed deep worry. Is Big Brother fine? Why isn't he awake yet? Xiao Man squatted beside Jian Chen as she asked in dejection. He's already fine. It's just that something has happened to his soul, so he should remain unconscious for a few more days. Kaya looked at Jian Chen and said softly. Zi Yun will never forget the kindness that you 2 saviors have shown. If I get the chance, I will definitely return it. Zi Yun bowed at Kaya deeply as she said sternly. She was grateful. This time, Jian Chen remained unconscious for a very long time. Only after half a month did he slowly wake up. As soon as he opened his eyes, he immediately felt a sharp pain in his soul. Ah! Big Brother. You're finally awake. Fantastic. That's fantastic. Sister Zi Yun, Sister Kai Ya, Jian Chen has woken up. Jian Chen heard Xiao Man's voice first. It was filled with excitement and joy. Without any need for a reminder, Zi Yun and Kai Ya had already sensed that he was awake the moment Jian Chen opened his eyes, as they were god kings. They all made their way over. Jian Chen sat up slowly. He looked around with some confusion, but soon afterwards, everything that happened before he lost consciousness flashed through his head, allowing him to clearly recall how several supreme god kings had surrounded him, all the way until the evil power took over. However, Jian Chen had no idea what had happened after the evil power took over him. Are we safe now? Jian Chen looked at Kai Ya and slowly stood up. As soon as he stood up, he staggered as he felt dizzy, almost falling over. Kai Ya immediately supported Jian Chen and asked out of concern, Jian Chen, are you fine? Jian Chen shook his head gently. I'm fine. My soul is just a little damaged. It's probably caused by the evil power. We're currently in the tower, and the tower has sunken to the very bottom of the lava. It's impossible for the people above to come here, so safety is not a problem. Go heal up first, said Kai Ya. Savior, I have pills that can heal the soul here. Please take them. Zi Yun immediately passed a jade bottle to Jian Chen. There was a god-tier pill for healing the soul in there. A chaotic prime from the Taoist sect of Neptunia had left behind this pill. She had obtained the chaotic prime's legacy, so she naturally obtained all of his belongings. There's no need. I have heavenly resources that can heal the soul. I'll go into seclusion for a period of time to heal that first. Jian Chen immediately entered secluded cultivation. He used the sap from the last 2 pieces of amethyst spiritual bamboo to heal the injury to his soul. The amethyst spiritual bamboo originated from the Xianhuang microcosm of the sea realm in the lower world. It was a heavenly resource that could heal souls, and its effects were extremely powerful. Coupled with the fact that it grew in the Xianhuang microcosm, allowing Xianhuang qi to permeate it all year round, it possessed some Xianhuang qi, which strengthened its effects even more. As a result, even though the grade of Jian Chen's amethyst spiritual bamboo was not particularly high, and it was supposed to have no evident effects on god kings, when Jian Chen dripped the sap on his forehead, his soul still recovered in a very short amount of time. I've used up all the amethyst spiritual bamboo I obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes. His wounds had already recovered during the half a month he spent unconscious, and now that his soul had healed as well, he was at his peak condition once again. However, he showed no joy at all. Instead, he frowned and seemed worried. The previous battle had allowed him to properly realize that the backlash of the evil power was becoming more and more powerful. Although he could still suppress the evil power right now, once the power of his soul was severely depleted and his wounds were too heavy, the evil power in his soul would be able to fight back at any moment. Even the warnings of the sword spirits would be useless. However, the part that made him feel powerless was that he had already become a god king, yet he was still unable to solve this personal problem completely. This was because the evil power had fused with his soul, basically becoming a part of him. Purging it would not be easy. At this moment, Kaya arrived before Jian Chen. She looked at him in worry, and she seemed to know that something burdened Jian Chen's mind. She said, "Jian Chen, you don't need to worry too much. There are many supreme god kings from the god king's throne in the Neptunian divine palace. They all come from peak organizations littered across the saints' world. Their knowledge cannot be compared with those regular god kings. They might know some ancient method to completely deal with the problem of your soul. In our current situation, it's difficult for us to make peace with those supreme god kings unless we hand Xiao Man over. Whatever, let's not talk about this anymore. Even if we worry, it'll be useless. It's better for us to see the world beneath the lava. Hopefully it won't disappoint me too much." Jian Chen stood up, and the grimness disappeared from his face in that instance. He smiled freely, and with a thought, he controlled the power of the Anata Tower to move him and Kaya to its entrance. The entrance of the Anata Tower was a damaged door. It was damaged to the point where it did not even need to be opened, and anyone could pass through it. It was even possible to see the surging lava outside through the entrance. Of course, Jian Chen knew that this door was only a matter of appearance. The Anata Tower was a god artifact of impressive quality after all. Let alone right now, even if the door had been completely taken away, no one could enter the interior of the Anata Tower without his permission. Even if every inch of the space outside was filled with lava, it was unable to seep in through the gaps in the door. The lava here is far too powerful. With the current strength of the senses of my soul, I can't expand it beyond the lava at all. It looks like I need to go out personally, Jian Chen frowned and said sternly. He understood just how terrifying the lava outside was. Even if he pushed the defenses of his chaotic body to the limits, he could not last for very long. You have to be careful. This is the very bottom of the lava seas, where it is far hotter than the surface. With the toughness of your body, you were able to last a while on the surface, but at the bottom, you'll struggle to even last 10 seconds, Kaya stood up and said from beside Jian Chen. She was extremely considerate, and she appeared to be worried. Don't worry. I know my limits. I don't want to lose my life here either. Jian Chen looked at Kaya in a way to tell her to stop worrying. His face was filled with confidence. The lava at the bottom was indeed terrifying, but it was impossible for this lava to kill him instantly, where he would not even have the time to retreat back into the tower. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath and silently circulated his chaotic force, pushing the chaotic body to its limits. Afterwards, he set up a screen of light around himself composed from the laws of the sword. After making all these preparations, he left the Anata Tower with a flash and entered the scorching lava. Jian Chen, you have to be careful. Don't travel too far away, and if you can't endure it, return immediately. Don't ever bite off more than you can chew, Kaya said from behind him. At the same time, she had already made up her mind that once Jian Chen encountered any dangers, she would charge out without any hesitation. As soon as he left the Anata Tower, an indescribably terrifying heat came rolling over. In just a single instance, the screen of light around Jian Chen became dull, and in less than 2 seconds, it had shattered already. What terrifying lava! If this lava was outside, probably even space won't be able to endure the heat and shatter as a result. The lava at the bottom really does have the ability to melt god artifacts. Only high-quality god artifacts like the Neptunian Divine Palace can endure such terrifying heat with so much ease. Jian Chen was secretly surprised. The moment his screen of light shattered, the scorching lava pressed against his body, and he immediately experienced a heart-wrenching pain like a million ants gnawing away at him. It caused him to tremble gently. However, this pain was basically no different from an itch compared to the torture brought on by each breakthrough of the chaotic body. He endured it easily. But in the next moment, Jian Chen suddenly froze up. This lasted for just a split second, and he began to tremble once again. This trembling was not because of how terrifying the heat was, but it was brought on by the great joy and excitement in his heart. Jian Chen was unable to expand the senses of his soul at the bottom of the lava, and his visibility was reduced to only 100 meters away. However, within that 100-meter range, the ground was basically littered with fire-red divine crystals of various sizes. Jian Chen was naturally familiar with these crystals. They were the valuable fire divine crystals. A single fire divine crystal was worth 10 times as much as a supreme-grade divine crystal of the same size. However, there were so many fire divine crystals at the bottom of the lava that they were like the stones in a riverbed. They blanketed the ground, forming a thick layer. It was truly innumerable. Jian Chen could not help but begin breathing raggedly. Joy filled him completely. What was his reason for coming to the Neptunian Divine Palace? It was not for the legacies, nor for the treasures. It was mainly for him to obtain enough wealth so that he could use a teleportation formation to return to the Tian Yuan clan, as well as teleport to where the Taoist sect of Divine Sound and the Ice Goddess Hall stood. The Taoist sect of Divine Sound had his wife, Shangguan Mu'er. The Ice Goddess Hall had his sister, who he had not seen for many years, Changyang Mingyue. There was even the heavenly palace of Bixing where the Anata Grand Prime resided, as Mingdong had been taken to the Saints' World by the heavenly palace of Bixing back on the Tian Yuan continent. Traveling to different planes quickly would cost an astronomical sum of divine crystals. Otherwise, he would have to take spaceships that would take thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years. Jian Chen did not have the time to wait thousands of years, so he needed to use the teleportation formations. Yet right now, all the fire divine crystals before him made Jian Chen see the hopes of reuniting with Shangguan Mu'er, his sister Changyang Mingyue, and Mingdong. Chapter 2094, Jian Chen's Death, 1. Without any hesitation, Jian Chen began to collect the fire divine crystals. He plunged his hands into the fire divine crystals and returned to the Anata Tower in a flash with them. Jian Chen appeared out of nowhere in the Anata Tower. He tossed the fire divine crystals on the ground before immediately sitting down to heal his wounds by circulating chaotic force. He had only spent 15 seconds outside this time, yet his body had become quite injured from the terrifying heat despite the short amount of time. His skin had cracked, and it had become as red as a lobster. The clothes on him had naturally disintegrated as soon as he went out, so he was completely naked right now. Kaya stood beside him and looked at the naked Jian Chen. Her expression became somewhat unnatural, and after producing a slight interjection of annoyance, she took out a set of clothes from her space ring and laid them on Jian Chen before looking at the fire divine crystals Jian Chen had taken in here. There was not a lot of them, only 8. However, every single one of them was the size of a fist, and they gave off a hot presence as extremely pure and tremendous energy circulated within them. It looks like there really are a lot of fire divine crystals below the lava, thought Kaya. Her eyes also lit up as she became rather excited. Jian Chen healed especially quickly because he circulated his chaotic force to focus on healing, so he made a full recovery in just 6 hours. Jian Chen, how's the situation outside? Kaya immediately asked after Jian Chen had finished healing. Although she was no weaker than Jian Chen, she did not possess a body as tough as Jian Chen's, so she did not dare to go out without reason. As a result, she had no idea about the situation outside. It really has lived up to my expectations. There are indeed many fire divine crystals below the lava, but I need to find a way to collect them. I won't be able to get much if I just use my hands, Jian Chen smiled. The lava was just too hot, so he did not dare to take a space ring out with him. As a result, he needed another method to collect the fire divine crystals. After a moment of thought, Jian Chen took out the primordial god silk from his space ring. The primordial god silk had already snapped into 2 when it was fending off the crisis of the world, but Jian Chen had refined it after all. As a result, he could control its length as he wished. With a thought, Jian Chen immediately controlled one segment of the primordial god silk to knit itself into armor around him, while the other segment turned into a huge golden net. The sword spirits have said that the primordial god silk can be refined into a supreme treasure of the world with extraordinary power. But refining a treasure like that naturally requires many high-grade materials, and there are harsh requirements on the person who refines it as well. As such, with my current strength, I can't refine it into a treasure. However, its quality is still there after all, so it shouldn't melt so easily in the lava, thought Jian Chen. He equipped the golden silk mail as he held a golden net in one hand before leaving the Anata Tower in a flash once again. Outside, as soon as Jian Chen arrived in the lava, he paid close attention to any changes to the primordial god silk. He did not want to damage something as precious as it again here. However, Jian Chen stopped worrying very soon. As soon as the primordial god silk appeared in the lava, it shone with a faint, golden light as a wondrous power circulated within it, preventing the heat of the lava from causing any harm to the primordial god silk. The primordial god silk really is tough. It can remain fine easily in a place where even god artifacts can be melted. Probably only the evil power of the crisis of the world that can devour all things can damage the primordial god silk, Jian Chen made up his mind. With a wave of his hand, he immediately cast out the net and engulfed a region of fire divine crystals. Afterwards, he suddenly tugged with his hands and pulled a great pile of fire divine crystals over. At the same time, 15 seconds had passed. Jian Chen's body had reached its limits. He did not hesitate at all, taking the huge pile of fire divine crystals in the golden net and returning to the Anata Tower as quickly as he could. The armor knit from the primordial god silk could not be regarded as a defensive treasure. The scorching lava was still able to seep through the cracks and injure Jian Chen. As a result, even when Jian Chen had it equipped, he could only last for 15 seconds outside. Once he stayed for any longer than that, his life would be in danger. With a shake of his hand, Jian Chen removed the net, and immediately, a great pile of shimmering fire divine crystals scattered on the ground. There were several hundred of them, where they could be as large as fists or as small as thumbs. His harvest this time was over 100 times more than last time. Kaya became stunned as well when she saw so many fire divine crystals. Although she had heard from Jian Chen that there were many fire divine crystals outside, she had not thought there would be this many, where Jian Chen could collect so much in just 15 seconds. Afterwards, Jian Chen began to collect the fire divine crystals at the bottom of the lava en masse, without any consideration for exhaustion at all. He could only stay for 15 seconds each time he went out, and he would spend several hours to heal every time he returned. He repeated this time and time again, so he would harvest a great amount of fire divine crystals every single day. Jian Chen basically forgot about Zi Yun and Xiao Man, who were still in the Anata Tower. He was especially busy during this period of time, and he was completely focused on collecting the fire divine crystals. He did not even have time to talk to Kai Ye, who watched over him. In the days when Jian Chen busied himself, the Neptunian Divine Palace was not peaceful. The news that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace had awakened had already spread to various peak organizations, causing many supreme god kings who did not care for the legacies at all to take teleportations formations and head over from all parts of the Saints' world, gathering in the Neptunian Divine Palace. The sudden increase in unfamiliar faces in the Neptunian Divine Palace made the cultivators who had arrived first feel like a storm was brewing. They could already smell blood, causing all the cultivators to grow cautious. They felt insecure. Strange. Why have so many people suddenly appeared in the Neptunian Divine Palace? I feel like there is more than 10 times the number of people compared to before. Where did all these Neptunian medallions come from? The arrival of these people is probably related to the Neptunian moon. As for the Neptunian medallions, some peak organizations have already managed to make copies. After all, they haven't changed at all over several million years. Discussions like that could be heard everywhere in the Neptunian Divine Palace. However, whenever people mentioned this, they were grim. None of the people who had suddenly appeared in the Neptunian Divine Palace were simple. There were plenty of supreme god kings from the god king's throne, causing many overgods and some ordinary god kings in the Neptunian Divine Palace to experience tremendous mental pressure. At that moment, a white-robed young man with a striking appearance looked around the surroundings with some excitement on the first floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace. There was even a clear sense of eagerness in his gaze. Chapter 2095, Jian Chen's Death, 2. Behind the young man were 5 guards in golden armor. The armor covered their faces completely, obscuring their appearances, which added a sense of mysteriousness. Many god kings gathered in small groups around the young man, but basically all of them stared in the direction of the young man in white robes, or more correctly, they stared at the 5 guards in golden armor behind him. They all showed surprise and angst. The young man ignored everyone's gazes. He smiled gently. Let's go. Let's go up and ask around. These people have only just come in, so asking them is useless. As the young man smiled, he had already run off while the 5 golden guards followed him closely. Did I see it correctly? The 5 people in golden armor seem like divine generals from the heavenly palace of Bisheng. It can't be wrong. The divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bisheng all wear a standardized armor that bears the insignia of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. No one dares to replicate it, so they're divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bisheng for sure. But it doesn't make sense. The heavenly palace of Bisheng is such a supreme existence, So why would they send divine generals into the Neptunian divine palace? I don't think the heavenly palace of Bishing would have any interest in the Neptunian divine palace.
You can tell with a single glance that the 5 divine generals are following that young man.
But who is that young man? Is he a disciple of one of those majesties from the heavenly palace of Bishing? A fervent discussion immediately broke out at the entrance on the first floor after the young man had left. Divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bishing actually protected him, which raised everyone's attention. Even the supreme god kings among them became stern. It doesn't matter who the young man is. We can't afford to become his enemy. Even though the ancestors have once said that the Anata Grand Exalt died over 3 million years ago, the heavenly palace of Bishing still has the support of their majesties. Apart from the 8th majesty, none of the other 3 majesties can be provoked by our ancestors. Just a flick of their fingers will be enough to destroy our clans. At that moment, many god kings spoke to their people secretly. Even a few supreme god kings warned the people beside them sternly. To no surprise, the young man in white robes that everyone was talking about was Ming Dong, who had come to the Neptunian divine palace especially for Jian Chen. At this moment, Ming Dong wandered through the Neptunian divine palace with the 5 divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bishing. He would go ahead and ask anyone he met about Jian Chen, regardless of their cultivation. Jian Chen? Never heard of him. Brother, I've only entered the Neptunian divine palace recently, so I really don't know who Jian Chen is. Why don't you give me a method of contact, so once I get news about Jian Chen, I can tell you immediately. Ming Dong asked several people consecutively, but the end result was very obvious. Everyone he came across had only entered the Neptunian divine palace recently, just slightly earlier than him, so they naturally did not know about Jian Chen. When the people Ming Dong stopped saw the special attires of the divine generals and the insignia of the heavenly palace of Bishing, they all became extremely polite and spoke with much respect. They did not dare to waste any time. The heavenly palace of Bishing was indeed far too distant to cultivators who struggled at the bottom of the hierarchy. Some of them did not even possess the right to know about it. However, all the disciples and descendants of large organizations were familiar with it. There's no one who knows in the lower floors. It looks like I need to make my way up, thought Ming Dong. Then he looked at the 5 divine generals behind him and said, "The armor you wear is too eye-catching. Although I've come to the Neptunian divine palace to search for my brother Jian Chen, 8th Senior has set this up as training for me as well. If you keep wearing the armor, I won't be able to train at all, so put the armor away. Don't wear it unless I'm facing critical danger."
"Yes, 9th Majesty."
The 5 divine generals replied together and stowed the golden armor away, revealing their appearances. All 5 of them were middle-aged men. They were expressionless while their eyes were extremely cold. Every single one of them was a vicious person who had gone through countless battles and had maneuvered their way to their current position over the corpses of others. Just as expected, no one was able to recognize that they were from the heavenly palace of Bishing anymore. Afterwards, Ming Dong took the 5 divine generals with him as he made his way through the Neptunian divine palace. He went all the way to the 9th floor and finally stopped a god king that was passing by. He clasped his fist politely and asked, "Sir, have you heard of a person called Jian Chen?" "Jian Chen? The young man who appears to be in his 20s? The one who comprehends the laws of the sword?" The god king was surprised and replied with more questions. Yes. Him. It's him. If you know where Jian Chen is, please tell me. I will definitely be extremely grateful." Ming Dong immediately beamed. He had separated with Jian Chen for so many years, and they could finally meet once again despite being in a foreign land. He struggled to remain calm over this as he experienced great excitement. He was killed off long ago. Even his corpse doesn't remain. "You're dreaming if you want to find him," the god king said indifferently and no longer paid any attention to Ming Dong, directly leaving by himself. Ming Dong's face suddenly froze. His excited emotions seized up at that moment, and his heart stopped beating. His blood stopped flowing. The news from the God King boomed through Ming Dong's head like a bolt from the blue. It stunned him completely. Jian Chen is dead. "He is already dead," Ming Dong murmured softly. He seemed to have lost his soul, but this only lasted for a split second. In the next moment, his gaze suddenly became extremely sharp and extremely terrifying. A powerful presence as tremendous as the ocean radiated from his body. "Impossible. This is impossible. This can't be possible. Ming Dong roared out furiously.
With a flash, he chased up to the God King, and he was no longer as polite as before.
Ming Dong directly grabbed him by his robes and lifted him up as he bellowed out. What did you just say? You're lying to me, right? You're lying. Tell me, you were lying me before. Tell me you were lying to me before. Ming Dong seemed to lose his mind. In the moment before, he was still thinking about the joy and excitement he would feel when he reunited with Jian Chen. Yet in the next moment, he heard that Jian Chen was already dead. The difference between his thoughts and reality caused an extremely great impact on him. He struggled to accept it. Ming Dong's presence immobilized the God King.
He could not help but pale in fright as he said with a trembling voice, "Senior, I've only heard that Jian Chen's dead.
I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Maybe I am wrong. You must be lying. My brother can't have died here," Ming Dong roared out as he tossed the God King far away. Immediately, he stopped a second God King and asked the same question. Sai, Jian Chen really is dead. I saw that battle clearly from nearby. There were a total of 8 supreme God Kings from the God King's throne throughout the entire process who worked against him. Jian Chen fought against them despite only reaching God King recently, and he died on the 8th floor in the end.
His corpse fell into the lava, so even his remains have been destroyed. The God King shook his head as he sighed.
He showed much pity. It truly is a pity. A supreme prodigy like Jian Chen has actually passed away at such a young age, dying to the hands of several supreme God Kings. If he had enough time to grow, he probably would have the right to stand firmly as the first place on the God King's throne. After sighing gently again, the God King left Ming Dong's side. Arg! Ming Dong roared out. His furious voice rang through most of the 9th floor, and with it, an extremely powerful and terrifying killing intent exploded from his body like a flood. It reduced the origin energy in the surroundings to a mess. The second God King had personally witnessed the astounding battle, so he spoke with much detail.
Everything he said seemed to flash through Ming Dong's head as if Ming Dong saw Jian Chen being surrounded, fighting for his life against 8 supreme God Kings from the God King's throne with his early God King cultivation before falling into the lava and burning into a crisp.
Ming Dong became so overwhelmed with grief that he wanted to end it right there. He refused to believe it, nor could he accept that something like this would happen to the brother he had been separated from for so many years just when they were about to reunite. Reality had become so brutal. I'm late. Ming Dong felt like his heart was being ripped to pieces as he was filled with sorrow. He knelt on the ground powerlessly, pounding it with punch after punch, causing it to tremble constantly like an earthquake was occurring. His eyes became bloodshot. "Ninth Majesty, I'm sorry for your loss," a divine general comforted. Suddenly, Ming Dong traveled away at an extremely great speed with a single movement, directly flying towards the 8th floor. "Ninth Majesty." The expression of the 5 divine generals changed slightly as they pursued while calling out. Ming Dong directly made his way to the 8th floor.
Looking at the scorching lava below, he equipped a set of armor without any hesitation and charged towards it.
To no surprise, the armor was a god artifact.
Even though the armor would not be enough if he plunged to the bottom of the lava, he would last for a while at the surface.
Even if my brother is dead, I can't let him rest here. Determination flooded Ming Dong's eyes as he charged into the lava resolutely. He wanted to retrieve Jian Chen's corpse. "Ninth Majesty, you must not." Behind him, the expressions of the 5 divine generals changed. They all hurried over as quickly as they could, stopping Ming Dong with speed even greater than his. "Move!" Ming Dong called out. His gaze was extremely sharp. However, the 5 divine generals were specially chosen by his 8th senior. They were the 5 strongest God Kings of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Every single one of them possessed an extraordinary cultivation, and they knew powerful secret techniques. Their cultivation methods even originated from the Anata Grand Prime in the past, so they were even more powerful than some supreme prodigies. With them working together, Ming Dong was unable to resist at all. He was taken high up into the sky by them. "Ninth Majesty, the lava here is extremely terrifying. It can even melt god artifacts, so if Jian Chen has fallen in there so long ago, he has probably already been burnt to a crisp. If you're going to risk danger and go in there and waste your efforts, why don't you save it instead and avenge Jian Chen?" A divine general said. "Revenge." Ming Dong gradually calmed down as his eyes instantly became filled with frigid killing intent. Afterwards, the ninth majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng, the ninth disciple of the Anata Grand Prime, Ming Dong, seemed to lose his mind. He scoured the Neptunian divine palace to ask about the 8 supreme god kings who ganged up on Jian Chen, and he even put forth an extremely enticing reward for the identities and information on the 8 supreme god kings. As this matter spread, it caused quite a ruckus in the Neptunian divine palace. It even raised the close attention of a few supreme god kings from the god king's throne. It is just like what I said. Jian Chen already possessed such great battle prowess despite only breaking through to God King recently. So he's definitely a prodigy from a great organization. Do you see it now?
People have come to avenge him, even going as far as to turn on the 8 supreme god kings.
Although I can't say I know all of the supreme god kings who attacked Jian Chen, I do happen to know details about 2 of them. Both of them have extremely terrifying organizations backing them up. So who is this person who wants to take revenge for Jian Chen? Is he bold enough to offend several supreme organizations at the same time? He'll end up screwing himself over before he can complete any revenge. Information on any single person from the 8 is enough to exchange for a supreme quality saint artifact. If you can provide their exact location, you will receive a god-tier pill. Heavens! Who is this person? He can take out supreme quality saint artifacts and god-tier pills as he pleases. Isn't he far too wealthy? It looks like the person who wants to avenge Jian Chen has extraordinary origins. He doesn't fear the 8 supreme god kings at all, and he isn't even taking the organizations behind the 8 of them seriously. Conversations about the astronomical rewards could basically be heard everywhere in the Neptunian divine palace. Let alone regular god kings, who were greatly enticed by supreme quality saint artifacts and god-tier pills, but even a few unwealthy supreme god kings were interested as well. Once Ming Dong announced his astronomical rewards, it led to a surge in the Neptunian divine palace, becoming the new topic of conversation. Even the god kings who entered afterwards learnt about the story behind the astronomical rewards and understood that an extremely impressive god king had appeared in the Neptunian divine palace.
The supreme god kings who entered later were very indifferent to the matter.
They did not take it too seriously. They either possessed extremely great backgrounds or extremely great strength. They had not come for the legacies or the treasures, but for the Neptunian divine palace itself. But very soon, another piece of news related to the rewards rang out. Not only did it stun basically everyone in the Neptunian divine palace, but even several supreme god kings showed disbelief. The capture of any one of the 8 god kings will be rewarded with a low-quality god artifact. He's insane. He has gone insane. This person is a complete madman. Is this person kidding with us all about giving a low-quality god artifact as a reward, or is he really that rich? Heavens, that's insane. A god artifact. It's a god artifact. Even if it's a low-quality god artifact, it's still something that's priceless in the saints' world.
Let alone the fact that even Supreme God King would treat it as an absolute treasure, but even many infinite primes would be willing to go through bloodshed for a low-quality god artifact. The capture of a single person will be rewarded with a low-quality god artifact. Doesn't that mean there are 8 low-quality god artifacts if all 8 of them are captured? That's unbelievable. Who is this person? Can he really take out that many god artifacts? Once god artifacts were thrown onto the table, it immediately shook up the entire Neptunian divine palace. Even the supreme god kings who came in later were stunned. The 8 supreme god kings who worked against Jian Chen naturally raised much attention under the enticement of such a great reward. More and more people looked around in search of information about them and their whereabouts. Ha ha ha, Jian Chen is a mere early god king. Why would he need the 8 of us to deal with him? Any single one of us would have been enough to crush him effortlessly. The reason why we all worked together was not because of how powerful he was, but because he possessed something that interested us. We all wanted it for ourselves, which was why it seemed like we were attacking him together. Whoever wants to avenge Jian Chen, I'll be waiting for you at the Moon's View Peak on the 10th floor. I hope you don't make me wait for too long. The supreme god kings who attacked Jian Chen were rather arrogant, and they stepped forward themselves. In the end, the message made it to Ming Dong very quickly after being passed on by countless people. Moon's View Peak, Ming Dong murmured on the 9th floor as killing intent filled his eyes. He directly made his way towards the Moon's View Peak with the 5 divine generals. Currently, an old man and a young man stood on the top of a mountain in a remote mountain range on the 9th floor. They were grave. Whoever is bold enough to take revenge for Jian Chen must have a huge background.
And he's even fearless enough to directly place bounties on supreme god kings, which means he is not taking them seriously at all.
Let's hide for now and not go out temporarily, the old man among the two said grimly.
The old man was one of the people who attacked Jian Chen, Song Ying. The young man was the supreme overgod who ranked first on the overgod's plaque, Mo Cheng. With his cultivation as an overgod, he could kill regular god kings. Although he was not as great as Jian Chen, he was still a shining star. He's fearless, but that doesn't mean we should fear him, Mo Cheng said coldly.
Even though he was nowhere close to the supreme god kings right now, he was not afraid of people like that at all.
We're naturally not afraid of him, but young master, you're still not the opponent of supreme god kings yet. Once we encounter the person who wants to avenge Jian Chen, I have no confidence that I can keep you safe, said Song Ying. Then I'll contact master and get him to send reinforcements, said Mo Chang. There's no need to alarm master. The journey to the Neptunian Divine Palace is only training for you after all. At the same time, a young man in gold robes sat on the ground somewhere on the 10th floor. His face was pale as he seemed frail. Before him, there was a man in black clothes. He was also pale-faced and frail. Gong Zheng, our souls have been injured by Jian Chen. Even if we ingest god-tier pills, we can't recover in a short amount of time. We're nowhere close to our peak condition. In our current state, we have to work together if we still want to get a share of the Neptunian Divine Palace, said the man in black. He came from the Bai family, and his name was Bai Yi. The Bai family was also a great clan in the Saints' world. They possessed much strength. The young man in gold nodded, agreeing to Bai Yi's suggestion of working together. I heard that the person who wants to avenge Jian Chen has even put forth god artifacts as a reward. What extravagance! Bai Yi, are you interested in going to the Moon's View Peak to see how skilled this person is? I was just thinking that.
If we get the opportunity, we can kill him off during all that as well, Bai Yi said slowly as a cold light flickered through his eyes.
The Moon's View Peak was originally a regular mountain that had no renown in the Neptunian Divine Palace at all. However, the mountain that many people had not even heard of before had become well known now. The supreme god kings who worked against Jian Chen called the mysterious person with great wealth to the Moon's View Peak to fight. This immediately attracted a great deal of attention. For a time, all the cultivators in the Neptunian Divine Palace gathered over from everywhere towards the Moon's View Peak. They wanted to see who the person who had publicly placed a bounty on the 8 supreme god kings was, and they also wanted to see if he truly possessed the strength to do that. As people gathered over, the surroundings of Moon's View Peak naturally became busier and busier. There were even many supreme god kings among them. They either sat there resting with their eyes closed, or they gazed at the Moon's View Peak indifferently. 2 people stood up straight on the Moon's View Peak. Powerful presences radiated from them, flooding the surroundings and pressuring many regular god kings in the area greatly. The 2 of them were clearly both supreme god kings, and they were 2 of the 8 people who had worked against Jian Chen before. They stood beside each other as they remained calm, quietly waiting for the person who had placed down the bounty to arrive. Do you think that mysterious person who set down the astronomical bounty will come? He'll definitely come. Since this mysterious person is bold enough to place a bounty on the 8 supreme god kings and take out low-quality god artifact like they're nothing, he's definitely far from simple. You can't be too sure. Maybe the mysterious person is just trying to make some noise. As for the low-quality god artifacts, have you ever heard of anyone truly obtaining one? People constantly discussed among themselves softly around the Moon's View Peak. They felt curious about the mysterious person who had set down the bounty, but they also felt some doubt towards him. At this moment, several streaks of light shot through the night sky, flying over from the distance with lightning speed. In the end, they hovered above the Moon's View Peak. There was a total of 6 people.
The person leading them was a striking young man with a cold expression. Beside him were 5 middle-aged men in robes.
They were expressionless, and their eyes were cold. Which one of you worked against Jian Chen in the past?
The striking young man hovered in the air as he looked down from above.
His voice was frigid and contained heavy killing intent. To no surprise, the young man was Ming Dong. Everyone around the Moon's View Peak directed their attention towards Ming Dong. Even some of the resting supreme god kings opened their eyes in that instance. They were all curious about the mysterious person who had publicly set down an astronomical bounty against the 8 supreme god kings.
It's actually him. The eyes of many people in the crowd narrowed.
They became stern and also revealed some confusion.
They were the people who had entered the Neptunian divine palace at the same time as Ming Dong, having personally witnessed the divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bixing follow Ming Dong.
It looks like you're the person who set down the bounty. As for working together against Jian Chen? Ha ha ha, do you think Jian Chen needs the 8 of us to work together? He's a mere early god king. Any single one of us is enough to kill him effortlessly. It's as simple as crushing an ant.
It's just that he had something on him that interested us, which was why all 8 of us took part in the matter together.
In the end, some of the people observing to one side took it as several supreme god kings working together against a single early god king. A supreme god king on the moon's view peak laughed aloud. Then he took out a piece of white cloth soaked in blood and waved it in front of Ming Dong.
He sneered. "Do you see the cloth in my hand?"
This came from Jian Chen, and it was cut off with his flesh.
Speaking of which, it should be the only thing that remains of Jian Chen, so if you want it, feel free to exchange it with a low-quality god artifact.
Looking at the bloody fragment in the Supreme God King's hands, Ming Dong's eyes immediately narrowed as he became grief-stricken. He could clearly sense an extremely familiar presence from the cloth. It was a presence unique to Jian Chen's chaotic blood. Arg! Ming Dong roared out as killing intent surged within him. He burned with fury. Afterwards, he charged towards the Supreme God King on the moon's view peak. You've lost your rationality so easily. You're only capable of so much, yet you've placed down a bounty to avenge Jian Chen? What a joke. But regardless of who you are, you will be dying on the moon's view peak today. The 2 Supreme God Kings on the mountain peak sneered. They exploded with shocking battle prowess as they became locked in battle with Ming Dong. The 5 divine generals with Ming Dong did not take part. Instead, they paid close attention to the battle. The trip to the Neptunian divine palace would be a very good training experience for their 9th majesty, so they would not intervene unless he faced death. This person is nothing to be feared, but since he has come to avenge Jian Chen, he'll become an enemy sooner or later. Why don't we kill him right now? Gong Zhang said coldly from within the crowd. He and Bai Yi had disguised themselves slightly, so they had no need to worry about other people recognizing them. There's no need to be in such a hurry. There are still 5 powerful guards beside him.
Let's not do anything right now and observe some more first, said Bai Yi as he stared at the battle between the 3 of them.
Violent booms constantly rang out in the air as the battle between Ming Dong and the 2 Supreme God Kings had already reached a level of great intensity. It had to be mentioned that Ming Dong was very powerful.
He was at the level of Supreme God Kings without a single doubt.
Not only was he no weaker than Jian Chen, but he was even much more powerful in comparison. Not only did he fail to lose the upper hand as he fought against the 2 Supreme God Kings alone, but he even seemed to dominate them slightly.
Although their battle had only lasted for a few seconds, they all become bloodied and suffered from wounds of various degrees.
Sword Qi of Void Destruction. Suddenly, Ming Dong cried out, and the power of the laws of destruction descended. It condensed into a black strand of sword Qi that was several meters wide. Radiating with sword Qi enough to frighten everyone watching, it shot off as a black streak of light, heading directly towards one of his opponents. God-tier battle skill. That's a God-tier battle skill. Many God Kings cried out around the moon's view peak.
Even the eyes of the Supreme God Kings narrowed.
Facing Ming Dong's God-tier battle skill, the Supreme God King did not dare to show any carelessness. He was stern and immediately cried out.
Energy surged around him as the power of laws condensed from thin air, forming a blinding beam of light that suddenly shot out.
He also used a battle skill. It was very powerful. Although it was not of the God tier, it seemed to have exceeded the 9th grade of the Truth tier. It was a pseudo-God tier battle skill. God tier battle skills were just like God artifacts. Normally, only primordial realm experts could use them. Among God Kings, including the Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne, the people who could use God tier battle skills were basically mythical existences. Of course, there were some God tier battle skills like the profound sword Qi that borrowed the mysteries of the world and did not have such a great requirement on cultivation, allowing weaker cultivators to use them.
However, let alone the fact that there was definitely no more than 3 of these in the entire mortals world, even when the saints' world and the immortals' world were considered together, there would probably only be a handful at most.
They were extremely rare and precious. Boom! With a deafening boom, Ming Dong's battle skill that contained the presence of destruction dispersed the shockingly powerful beam of light. Afterwards, it continued onwards without slowing down at all, striking the chest of the Supreme God King with unimaginable force. Crack! With a crisp sound, the defensive Supreme Quality Saint artifact on the Supreme God King's body immediately shattered. His entire chest caved in as destructive power rampaged through his body. All his organs and blood vessels were shredded to pieces while he became heavily injured. Blood constantly spurted from his mouth. Ming Dong's presence rose up, becoming more and more powerful. His killing intent had become so powerful that it almost seemed to become tangible.
He stared at the person in fury and resentment as he made his way through the air.
In just a single step, he crossed the huge distance and arrived before the Supreme God King.
The sword in his hand shone brightly as he directly swung it with the laws of destruction.
The attack seemed to form a domain, where the space around the Supreme God King froze when Ming Dong struck out. It trapped him there firmly, immobilizing him completely. Immediately, blood spurted into the sky, and the Supreme God King was beheaded by Ming Dong in a single stroke. His blood rained down on the earth as it glowed like starlight, making it seem like a meteorite shower. Do you know who I am? As long as the soul existed, it was not true death. The Supreme God King who Ming Dong beheaded was not dead yet. He stared at Ming Dong resentfully as he tried to put on a strong front with the mental pulse he let out. It doesn't matter who you are or what your background is. There is only death for all those who took part in the encirclement against Jian Chen, because I, Ming Dong, will not let any of you go, Ming Dong said coldly. His face was frigid as his killing intent was extremely intense. He directly picked up the Supreme God King's head and cast down a seal through a secret technique, trapping his soul in his head so that he could not flee. Gu Li's master is an ancestral emperor of an everlasting empire. If you kill him, you better think about the consequences you'll be facing properly. The other Supreme God King no longer attacked him. He stared at Ming Dong from afar in shock. Ming Dong said nothing. He gripped the Supreme God King's head in his left hand as he killed his way towards the second Supreme God King with a sword in his right hand. After witnessing Ming Dong's strength, the second Supreme God King understood very well that he was not Ming Dong's opponent. He had given up on the battle long ago, so he immediately used a secret technique to flee without any hesitation. Stop him! Ming Dong called out coldly and immediately ordered the 5 divine generals. He really was not confident about stopping a Supreme God King if they wholeheartedly wanted to flee. The 5 divine generals had already spread out in the surroundings when Ming Dong started fighting, surrounding the battle. Under Ming Dong's orders, the 5 of them immediately raised their hands towards the sky and used a secret technique, locking down the region that they encircled. Sensing the changes in the space there, the expression of the Supreme God King who wanted to flee changed drastically. Suddenly, he looked at Ming Dong and growled, "Sir, do you really want to kill us all?" The response he received was a sword cleaving towards him mercilessly with the laws of destruction. They were not Ming Dong's opponent even when they fought him together, so the difference in strength was even more evident now that he was alone. Before long, the second Supreme God King was beheaded by Ming Dong in a single stroke as well. His blood dyed the sky and the moon's view peak red. The people in the surroundings had already become speechless by the time the battle ended. Their hearts surged. Supreme God Kings were almost like legends in the eyes of many people, yet right now, 2 of them had been slain right before them. The impact to their souls was so great that they struggled to calm down even after a very long time. The Supreme God Kings in the crowd were all grave. They stared at Ming Dong without blinking at all as if they wanted to remember his face firmly. The strength Ming Dong had displayed was enough to make many experts on the God King's throne feel angst. He doesn't seem like anyone on the God King's throne. Both his name and his characteristics are extremely unfamiliar. It looks like this person called Ming Dong hasn't attempted the God King's throne. Some experts on the God King's throne sighed in amazement inside. Let's go. This person is very powerful, and our souls are injured. We're not his opponent at all, Bai Yi said to Gong Zheng secretly in the crowd. His complexion was ugly. Gong Zheng's face was completely sunken. He dared not look at Ming Dong directly, as he was afraid that Ming Dong would discover his existence because of his gaze. Bai Yi and Gong Zheng left carefully. They followed the crowd and departed from the moon's view peak. They had disguised themselves when they came, so they did not worry about being recognized.
A veiled woman in a white dress stood tall and straight to another side of the crowd.
She also stared at Ming Dong on the moon's view peak gravely. "Your Highness, this person is very powerful. He probably has the right to make it into the top 100 firmly. For your safety, I'd recommend your Highness to leave the Neptunian Divine Palace." Over a dozen God Kings gathered beside the lady, protecting her like guards. One of the God King guards warned the lady secretly. The lady was the princess of an ancient empire with a deep heritage. She was also one of the 8 people who had attacked Jian Chen. To another side, another woman stood in the crowd with an extremely low profile. She wore a cloak, obscuring her appearance. This lady was also one of the 8 people. She was a prodigy of a large clan, but right now, the beautiful face under the cloak was also grim. "I never thought someone would come to avenge Jian Chen so quickly, and they would be this powerful. It looks like I need to be more careful in the future," thought the woman as the light in her eyes flickered with uncertainty. After slaying the 2 supreme God Kings, Ming Dong stood on the moon's view peak. In front of all the God Kings, he increased the bounty before leaving with the 5 divine generals and the 2 heads. God artifacts were very valuable, to the point where they were worth cities, or even to the point where there was basically no supply and only demand. However, in Ming Dong's eyes, avenging Jian Chen was more important than anything else. He would pay any price to find the other people as quickly as possible. Quite a few people among the 8 God Kings who had worked against Jian Chen had come to watch the battle at the moon's view peak. However, they were all very prudent and disguised themselves well, obscuring their presences and hiding amongst the crowd. No one managed to recognize them. The God Kings gathered around moon's view peak dispersed very quickly, and the place recovered its previous peace. Only the puddles of blood from God Kings silently explained the ferocity that had happened earlier. After that, Ming Dong's name rang through the Neptunian Divine Palace, allowing many God Kings to bear in mind that a supreme prodigy who was not on the God King's throne but possessed strength equivalent to those on the God King's throne had appeared in the Neptunian Divine Palace. As Ming Dong's name spread, more and more people bore his astronomical bounties in mind. They began to take it seriously. After all, although the bounties had caused quite a disturbance before, there were not a lot of people who took it seriously despite almost everyone knowing about it. They took it as a joke. But now, as Ming Dong had made his name in the battle, it changed. He had used his strength to garner admiration. After all, every single expert on the God King's throne was a proud existence of great status, viewing their own fame with greater importance than anything else. People like that would naturally tell the truth and not tarnish their own names. For a time, more and more people began to search for the 6 other supreme God Kings who attacked Jian Chen together. The God Kings who knew Ming Dong was related to the heavenly palace of Bisheng even treated it as top priority in an attempt to befriend Ming Dong through this, so that they could establish a connection with the heavenly palace of Bisheng. In the world of boundless volcanoes on the 8th floor, Ming Dong returned there with the heads of the 2 supreme God Kings. He hovered several dozen meters in the air as he stared at the churning lava below sternly. He seemed dejected as he grieved silently. "Jian Chen, I've already fought 2 of the 8 supreme God Kings. Can you see it? I've brought their heads as an offering to your soul. I'll use their blood and souls as a sacrifice to your soul in the afterlife," Ming Dong murmured softly. His heart was heavy as he was in deep sorrow. Afterwards, he gently let go of the 2 heads, allowing them to just fall out of the sky. "No, don't. Spare me, spare me. My clan will definitely be grateful. If you really dare to kill me, my master will never let you go. It won't just be you. It'll be the organization behind you as well. All of them will bear the rage of my master. My master is a Grand Prime, so you better consider it carefully. If you let me go right now, I can forgive you for what you did before." The souls of the 2 supreme God Kings were still there. They were just sealed up in the heads, which prevented them from escaping. As they saw the lava grow closer and closer, they became utterly flustered. They roared out furiously and even directly threatened Ming Dong. Ming Dong's face did not change, and even the 5 divine generals maintained the same expression. Even if Grand Primes were mentioned, they still did not change their minds. "No, don't. I'm the disciple of an ancestral empire of the Shenan Empire of the Heniu Plain, Gu Li. I will ask my master to complete the wish of whoever saves me." One of the Supreme God King emitted a mental pulse that spread far and wide. At this moment before death, he had completely forgotten about his pride. He tried everything he could to survive. There were still many god kings collecting fire divine crystals on the 8th floor. When they heard Gu Li, they were all startled, and they seemed interested. They were familiar with the Shenen Empire. It was one of the 2 everlasting empires of the Hinyu Plain. They stood at the peak of the plain, making them extremely powerful. The ancestral emperors of everlasting empires were all grand primes. They were existences who stood at the apex, making them so great that they could look down on all living things. They were absolute. If they could get someone like that to complete a wish, it would definitely be a fortune enough to change their fates. It was something they could only wish for. For a moment, many god kings wavered on the 8th floor. They all gathered together, but when they saw the cold Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals who stood like gods of slaughter, they all hesitated. They did not dare to intervene. They had not lost their rationality. They all thought of the same question. This person was even bold enough to kill the disciple of a grand prime fearlessly, so how could his background be weak? What are you all staring for? Do something. Gu Li panicked. He called out loudly, but no one truly intervened. In the end, Gu Li's head fell into the lava while his soul was sealed in there. His face was filled with regret as the lava below swallowed him up. This sight shocked all of the surrounding god kings. That was the disciple of an ancestral emperor of the Shenen Empire, yet he had just died like that. The Shenen Empire was located on the Hinyu Plain, which was close to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Was the young man not afraid that the ancestral emperor would be waiting for him outside the Neptunian Dive Palace? However, the god kings soon realized something, and their faces changed, immediately leaving the area as quickly as possible. They vanished in the blink of an eye. They had not gone to the Moon's View Peak, so they naturally did not know about what happened there. They were afraid that Ming Dong would want to silence them through slaughter. Ming Dong ignored the god kings. His gaze remained fixed on the lava below him. His eyes were downcast while he was depressed. He seemed like he had lost his soul. He remained there for an entire hour and only left with the 5 divine generals after confirming that the 2 heads had been burnt to a crisp. He went off to find the other 6 people. Currently, at the bottom of the lava, where people believed it was impossible to survive, a man in golden silk mail endured the terrifying heat as he held onto a net woven from golden threads. He dragged a huge pile of fire divine crystals in the net as he flew towards a small, golden tower nearby. However, just when he was about to enter the tower, he suddenly froze. He looked up and saw 2 half-melted heads gradually sink down. The person produced an interjection of surprise. He grabbed the 2 heads with a single movement, and without any hesitation, he entered the tower in a flash. Who could this be? It was naturally Jian Chen, who everyone believed to be dead. There was already a small mountain of fire divine crystals in the Anata Tower. They were innumerable, casually thrown there like useless rocks. After entering the Anata Tower, Jian Chen tossed the fire divine crystals he had just collected over there casually, causing the pile to slightly grow in size once again. Then he looked at the 2 heads. These 2 heads seem somewhat familiar. It's as if I've seen them before. Jian Chen studied the heads. Although the heads were basically unrecognizable now, they still possessed a familiar presence. I've definitely seen these 2 people when they were still alive, but the impression they gave me was not particularly deep. Coupled with the fact that most of these heads have been melted away by the lava, I can't even tell whether they were male or female when they were still alive, let alone recognize them. Jian Chen frowned as he held the 2 heads. The souls in the 2 heads had already been dispersed, and lava had flooded the heads through every cavity as well. Lava constantly dripped from them right now, covering Jian Chen's hand. A while later, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He finally remembered who they were. Due to the fact that a powerful screen of light condensed from laws protected all 8 supreme god kings who fought against him, Jian Chen had not personally seen their appearances. However, he clearly remembered their presences when he fought them. The residual presences from the 2 heads in his hands completely matched 2 of them. I never thought 2 would have already died, and to think that I wanted to take revenge personally. It looks like they have died to the hands of someone else in the end. Jian Chen sighed gently as his expression became rather mixed. With a flash, Kaya suddenly appeared before Jian Chen. She stared at the 2 heads that had been melted beyond recognition and said, 2 supreme god kings have died all of a sudden. It looks like the fights in the Neptunian Divine Palace are becoming more and more intense. where even god kings from the god king's throne are gradually losing their advantage. Jian Chen nodded in agreement. The Neptunian Divine Palace this time is different from the past. The appearance of the Neptunian moon means that something big will happen in the Neptunian Divine Palace. It's impossible to keep this matter a secret, so it has probably spread to the outside world already. If I've guessed correctly, the large clans and organizations in the Saints' world should have sent many god kings into the Neptunian Divine Palace. That should include a few extremely powerful god kings. Kaya became extremely stern and said, if the Neptunian Divine Palace really has gained even more experts, it'll be even worse for us. Unless we remain beneath the lava for the entire time, we'll probably become everyone's target as soon as we show ourselves with how special Xiaoman is. Jian Chen, what do you plan on doing next? Jian Chen thought for a while and responded, there's still some time before the Neptunian Divine Palace closes. Before that, I want to collect some more fire divine crystals before investigating the matter with Xiaoman. I'll decide what we should do after all that. Time passed silently. In the blink of an eye, it had already been a few days since Ming Dong killed the two supreme god kings. During that time, Ming Dong had always been investigating the whereabouts of the 6 other people. His astronomical bounty had already spread across the entire Neptunian Divine Palace. The god artifacts turned countless people green with greed. Although Ming Dong's reckless exhibition of his wealth had motivated many god kings in the Neptunian Divine Palace to find where the 6 of supreme god kings were, it had also drawn over a few people who wanted to kill him and take his treasures. As a result, Ming Dong encountered ambushes, traps, assassins, and so on. They all wanted to kill him and take his things. However, any person who eyed Ming Dong's items did not return. Not only did they fail to take anything from Ming Dong, but it even consolidated Ming Dong's name instead, making him even more renowned in the Neptunian Divine Palace. In the past few days, Ming Dong had learnt about the remaining 6 people completely, understanding their backgrounds. However, due to the fact that the 6 of them had witnessed Ming Dong's strength during the fight at Moon's View Peak, Ming Dong failed to find their traces in all these days. These 6 people sure are hidden well. It won't work if we continue like this, but I do know their identities now, so for them to escape from me is basically impossible. Ming Dong ordered the 5 divine generals coldly with a sunken face as he brimmed with killing intent. Watch over me. I want to cast Fate Sight to find them. The expressions of the 5 divine generals changed when they heard that. One of them immediately replied, You must not, Ninth Majesty. Fate Sight is a forbidden technique. You can't use it without the corresponding strength, or you'll be injured by the power of the universe. It'll be very difficult to recover from. The price is just too great. Fate Sight was created by Ming Dong's master. Once the technique was cast, the caster could peer into the heavenly secrets and the mysteries of the universe. The caster could peer into his personal samsaric journey, his past, present, and future lives, and the fates of all living organisms. It was extremely wondrous and profound. Ming Dong was not powerful enough to peer into the heavenly secrets or the mysteries of the universe, and he would struggle to see his personal samsaric journey or the fates of all living organisms. However, with the information he possessed, it would not be too difficult for him to use the technique to see the lines of fate, the threads of karma, and find traces of the people he was looking for. As long as I can avenge my brother, so what if I am injured by the power of the universe? Ming Dong spoke firmly, possessing a sense of irrefutable forcefulness. He did what he said. Without hesitating at all, he began casting Fate Sight. At the same time, the news that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace had awakened and that the Divine Hall would soon gain a new owner spread through the Neptunian Divine Palace completely, creating a huge disturbance. For a time, cultivators from various places and of varying cultivation levels moved about everywhere in the Neptunian Divine Palace. They scoured every corner in search of the artifact spirit. In the eyes of regular god kings, the 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace was no longer a forbidden place that they could not set foot in. They surged onto the 12th floor, searching every inch of the land there eagerly with burning desire. They refused to miss any area at all. The Neptunian Divine Palace by itself was a high-quality god artifact, and there was an unimaginable amount of resources within it. All of them understood that as long as they were recognized by the artifact spirit and became the master of this place, all of that would belong to them. However, even when they basically flipped the entire Neptunian Divine Palace upside down, they did not find any traces of the artifact spirit at all. Currently, A slender woman in a white dress sat on a boulder. A veil covered her face.
Although her appearance was obscured, it was possible to determine that she was definitely a beauty from her pretty eyes that were limpid like autumn water. Over a dozen god kings guarded her side with great loyalty as they constantly paid attention to the surroundings. As long as the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace remains hidden, finding it is almost impossible. Your Highness, should we keep searching? A guard asked politely. The woman on the boulder sank into her thoughts and said, I finally understand why that girl with a cultivation that was nothing special received the protection of the world now.
If I've guessed correctly, that girl has probably been chosen by the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit still hasn't come out, maybe because it's waiting for that girl to appear. What? That girl is the person chosen by the artifact spirit? Doesn't that mean? It said that little girl is only at the mortal realm. Your Highness, this isn't likely at all. The guards beside her all voiced their surprise. Everyone found it difficult to believe. I find this difficult to believe as well, but if you look throughout history, who has received the protection of the Neptunian divine palace out of the countless cultivators who have entered here? No one has. Across the countless years, this has never happened before, the woman said softly.
She looked at the surroundings with mixed feelings. Yet, this unbelievable matter has just happened right now, and it happened when the artifact spirit awakened.
What does this mean?
It means that the reason why the girl is protected by the world of the Neptunian divine palace is because of the secret assistance of the artifact spirit.
As a result, I'm certain that the little girl has been chosen by the artifact spirit. With that, the guards around the woman looked at one another. They thought the princess' analysis was very logical, but they also felt very confused about it.
They did not understand why the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace would choose a girl with such weak cultivation.
But the girl has already fallen into the lava, and she hasn't reappeared since. A guard brought up this carefully. The princess' gaze became deep.
She said,
Don't forget. The girl is protected by the world, so as long as a power that exceeds the Neptunian divine palace, a high-quality god artifact, does not appear here, she'll be fine. As a result, the lava may be terrifying, but it still can't harm the girl at all. Let's go to the 8th floor and see whether we can find the girl. Do you still think you can leave, Princess Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire? At this moment, a frigid voice rang out from nearby. There was chilling, killing intent in the voice, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plummet suddenly. Who? The expression of Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire changed, and she suddenly turned around.
Her face hidden under the veil became extremely stern.
With her strength, she had actually failed to sense the person's approach at all. 1,000 meters away, the space there twisted and 6 figures silently appeared in the empty air. They all kept themselves hidden through secret techniques, having approached this place silently, where even the supreme god king Yun Xiaoyan failed to sense anything. Yun Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly narrowed when she saw how it was.
However, her face did not change as she said, Young Master Ming, may I ask what you mean by what you said before?
These 6 people were Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals. However, Ming Dong's face seemed extremely pale right now.
He seemed rather frail, as if he had been injured.
He had paid a huge price to cast Fate Sight, having been injured by the power of the universe. He would not be able to recover in a short amount of time even after ingesting god-tier healing pills. Yun Xiaoyan, you should know why I'm here. Do you plan on denying the fact that you took part in attacking Jian Chen? Ming Dong hovered in the air as he said coldly and emotionlessly. A tremendous presence flooded out from him. Yun Xiaoyan giggled. She ripped off her veil, revealing beauty that was enough to enchant everything. She was truly as beautiful as a goddess. Young Master Ming sure is skilled. I've already hidden so well, where even my guards have disguised themselves. I thought I could fool all the people in the Neptunian Divine Palace, but I never thought I still won't be able to escape from young Master Ming's eyes. Yun Xiaoyan giggled as her limpid eyes stared right at Ming Dong. Humph, no matter how well you've hidden, no matter what you use, everyone who has taken part in the fight against Jian Chen will die in the end. Even if you leave the Neptunian Divine Palace, I, Ming Dong, will hunt you down. I won't let any of you go, Ming Dong said coldly. His expression did not change at all. Young Master Ming, although I did take part in the encirclement against Jian Chen, I didn't use my full strength.
Is young Master Ming really so cold-hearted where he doesn't even know how to go soft on women, and that he wants to claim my life under his sword?
Yun Xiaoyan said softly. She seemed like she had been wronged and seemed pitiful. Her expression coupled with her great beauty truly posed as an extremely great force of temptation.
In the entire world, probably almost no men would be vicious enough to lay their hands on her firmly and destroy such a beauty.
Die!
Ming Dong's face was cold as he did not waver at all. With a tremor of his sword, he charged towards Yun Xiaoyan with killing intent and the power of the laws of the sword.
Protect Her Highness! The guards around Yun Xiaoyan called out, and they all charged towards Ming Dong fearlessly. However, they were still regular god kings after all, even though there were late god kings among them. The difference compared to experts on the god king's throne was just too great. Ming Dong's eyes were cold.
As he surged with killing intent, the power of the laws of destruction formed into an angered dragon from his sword, engulfing 3 god kings instantly. The 3 god kings were unable to resist at all, and they were all shredded to pieces by the terrifying power of destruction in a single instance.
Stay back! Yun Xiaoyan called out with an ugly expression. She struck out with her full strength.
The sword in her hand emitted a huge stream of light with the power of the laws of the sword as she became locked in an intense battle against Ming Dong.
Boom! Their clash resulted in a deafening sound. The laws of destruction and the sword interwove as they entered an intense struggle in the air. Terrifying energy turned into storms that wreaked havoc in the surroundings.
The battle was truly devastating.
You sure are vicious. Yun Xiaoyan retreated in the air. She was no longer in the same shape as before. She was disheveled and in a horrible condition while her snow-white dress had become splattered with blood. Ming Dong was very powerful. Not only had he grasped various powerful battle skills and secret techniques, but he was also able to use the laws of destruction to a degree of mastery. In that short clash, Yun Xiaoyan had already lost the upper hand against Ming Dong. She was not his opponent at all. Heavens collapse!
Suddenly, Ming Dong shouted out, and the laws of destruction condensed on his hand madly.
It turned into a huge palm that shrouded the moon as he swung it towards Yun Xiaoyan mercilessly. Its might was terrifying enough to cause even the world to pale. A god-tier battle skill. You actually know more than one god-tier battle skill. Yun Xiaoyan's face changed drastically as she showed disbelief. It was virtually impossible for god kings to grasp god-tier battle skills. Yet Ming Dong actually knew too. This was just far too astounding. Chapter 2102, Experts United, 1. As she said that, an extremely powerful pulse of energy radiated from Yun Xiaoyan. She was stern as she formed a seal with one hand before suddenly pointing at the sky. As she extended her finger, a powerful strand of sword qi immediately shot out, plunging towards the sky with a demonic blood-like red light. After sending out the blood-red sword qi, a smear of paleness appeared on Yun Xiaoyan's face. The sword qi she had just used was an extremely powerful secret technique.
It was cast through burning her essence blood, and she would have to pay quite a great price every time she used it.
As a result, the sword qi possessed enough power to barely match god-tier battle skills. Ming Dong could not help but sneer disdainfully when he faced this attack. Suddenly he clenched his hand, and the huge palm created from his god-tier battle skill closed up as well, clutching Yun Xiaoyan's blood-red sword qi and crushing it to pieces. Spurt! Immediately, Yun Xiaoyan felt like her heart had been crushed to pieces. Blood spurted out from her mouth, and her pale face became even paler. She had burnt her essence blood to create the blood-red sword qi through a secret technique. Although it did possess the power to match up to god-tier battle skills to a certain degree, it was only barely. There was naturally a huge gap that still could not be covered when compared to Ming Dong's true god-tier battle skill. After crushing Yun Xiaoyan's sword qi, the huge hand continued onwards without slowing down at all. It engulfed Yun Xiaoyan with a tremendous destructive force, slamming down onto the ground. It produced a huge rumble, making the earth shake. The palm strike was so powerful that it formed a deep imprint in the ground. Moreover, this was the damage it had caused inside the Neptunian Divine Palace, a high-quality god artifact. If it was outside, there was no doubt that Ming Dong's palm strike would have been able to destroy a smaller planet effortlessly. Anything from the Saints' world would be on a completely different scale when compared to the Tianyuan continent. The strike was even able to shatter a smaller planet in the Saints' world, so its power was more than evident. Yun Xiaoyan was still alive. She was disheveled and in horrible shape, making her seem just like a beggar. Her beautiful face was terrifyingly pale as well. She stood up with much difficulty while her white dress had disintegrated long ago. A supreme quality saint artifact covered in cracks that shone with a dull glow covered her body. It was the only thing keeping her from becoming nude. Young Master Ming, you really are vicious. You have no idea how to appreciate women. Are you determined to kill me here today? Yun Xiaoyan stared at Ming Dong deeply, who hovered in the sky. He was cold like a merciless god of slaughter. She appeared as though she wanted to memorize his face firmly. That's right, Ming Dong said coldly. He wielded his sword as he strode towards Yun Xiaoyan. Ha ha ha, since young Master Ming is unwilling to let me go, I'll do as you wish. However, I won't be dying to your hands, Yun Xiaoyan giggled. In the end, she glanced at Ming Dong deeply with mixed feelings before pointing at her forehead, shattering her soul herself. The princess of the Thousand Lotus Empire, a supreme beauty of great talent ranked on the God King's throne, died just like this. Your Highness. Yun Xiaoyan's suicide filled her guards with grief. Ming Dong's stride paused slightly. He looked at the dead Yun Xiaoyan with quite some surprise as he remained silent. A while later, Ming Dong arrived before Yun Xiaoyan's corpse slowly. He ignored the intense objection from the guards and squatted down beside her. After examining the corpse carefully and confirming that she was dead, he stood up and said to Yun Xiaoyan's guards, "Your princess is an admirable person. She's the first woman that I must reappraise and hold in a new light, so I won't be taking her head. You can leave with her corpse." Throwing that down, Ming Dong left with the 5 divine generals. Now, 3 of the 8 god kings who had hunted down Jian Chen were dead. However, Ming Dong had already gained the precise location of the 5 other people as well through his fate sight. While Ming Dong was hellbent on avenging Jian Chen, a new storm brewed in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Xiao Man, who had received the protection of the world and also fallen into the lava in Jian Chen's Anata Tower, had become everyone's center of attention. Yun Xiaoyan was not the only person who guessed that it was extremely likely for Xiao Man to be the person chosen by the artifact spirit. Basically everyone believed that Xiao Man was connected to some unknown secret of the Neptunian Divine Palace after they learnt she was protected by the structure. Some people had even determined that Xiao Man might have caused the changes to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Several million years ago, there was a supreme expert who predicted that something big would happen to the Neptunian Divine Palace when the Neptunian moon appeared. But there hasn't been a single expert that has managed to tell whether this change will be good or bad. It has been a mystery the entire time. But looking at it now, this matter is likely to be the awakening of the artifact spirit, and that the Neptunian Divine Palace is about to gain a new master. This definitely isn't as simple as it seems on the surface. If it's just the selection of a new master, it's not really something big. In the future, we must be careful. Anything that can be described as big by a supreme expert means it's something on a different level. Many god kings discussed with one another. A few god kings thought about the rumor that had existed from over 3 million years ago. Suddenly, they all realized that their visit to the Neptunian Divine Palace would not be as simple as they thought it would be. They all became cautious. Have you heard that Ming Dong, who set up the astronomical bounty, has already personally slain 4 supreme god kings? After the battle at the Moon's View Peak, Princess Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire and the treasured daughter of the Kangman clan, Kang Mangfian, have been killed as well, where even their souls were wiped out. Before long, another piece of shocking news garnered everyone's attention. Ming Dong is insane. He even dares to kill the treasured daughter of the Kangman clan. The Kangman clan was once a peak clan renowned throughout the Saints' world, where they were no weaker than the Taoist sect of Neptunia in the past. Although they've already declined, their heritage is still very rich. They aren't an existence that can just be provoked without proper thought. What do you think Ming Dong's origins are? He's willing to offend so many peak organizations just to avenge a dead person. Fortunately, I didn't take part in the attack against Jian Chen, or I'd be a corpse now. Many god kings immediately became interested when Ming Dong was mentioned, and they joined in on the intense discussion. Chapter 2103, Experts United, 2. In a mountain range where people rarely set foot in on the 9th floor, an old man sat within a gloomy cave while keeping his presence concealed. It was possible to tell with a single glance that the old man was hiding. He was extremely cautious. Not only did he keep himself concealed at all times, but he even cast down various concealing formations in the obscure cave. All the formations were of impressive grades, where even if God Kings passed by, they would fail to discover what was hidden there. Who is Ming Dong? He has killed 4 Supreme God Kings consecutively. Both Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire and Kangmeng Fian of the Kangmeng clan have passed away. The old man in the concealed cave murmured softly with a frown. The old man was a Supreme God King on the God King's throne, Song Ying. In the past few days, Song Ying had spent his time hidden here. He did all he could to avoid conflict with Ming Dong. He had made this decision in the past not because he was afraid of Ming Dong, but because he did not want to drag his young master, Emo Chang, into the matter. This was because he had come into the Neptunian Divine Palace under his master's orders to protect Emo Chang. Although he had never ventured out in the past few days, he was extremely well informed. He basically knew everything major that had happened in the Neptunian Divine Palace, so he naturally knew about what Ming Dong had been doing. Right from the start, Song Ying had been stunned when Ming Dong killed the 2 Supreme God Kings from the Moon's View Peak. Afterwards, as several more Supreme God Kings died to Ming Dong's hands one after another, only then did he treat him with caution. It had even risen to the point where he felt angst. It looks like I can't remain in the Neptunian Divine Palace.
For the sake of the young master's safety, I might have to leave the Neptunian Divine Palace early with the young master. However, at this moment, Song Ying's eyes suddenly narrowed.
Suddenly, he raised his hand, and an azure scale seemed to appear. It flickered with light. A great sense of danger was clearly transmitted to Song Ying's mind from the scale.
Oh no!
Song Ying's face changed. Without any hesitation, he vanished from the gloomy cave with a slight movement.
When he reappeared, he had already arrived outside of the cave.
He quickly warned Emo Chang, who was cultivating in seclusion in another cave. Afterwards, he began to flicker with azure light as he shot off into the distance with unbelievable speed. At the same time, the calm space above the mountains suddenly distorted. Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals appeared in the empty air silently. I never thought he would actually be able to sense our arrival, but since I found you, do you still think you can escape?
Chase him.
Ming Dong said emotionlessly as he glared at the fleeing Song Ying. He and the 5 divine generals immediately pursued Song Ying. In terms of strength, Song Ying ranked towards the bottom end of the God King's throne, but in terms of speed, he could rank towards the top. Song Ying flickered with azure light. At that moment, he seemed to have become an azure pung, moving through the 9th floor with terrifying speed. He crossed tens of thousands of kilometers in a single instance, where he moved even faster than meteorites. It was truly terrifying. When he flew over some God Kings, some of them even failed to notice him. TL note: it's the same Peng as the Peng clan and Songqiong from back on the Tianyuan continent. The Peng is a Chinese mythological beast that you can read more about here. https://en. Wikipedia. org/wiki/peng_mythology. Ming Dong pursued Song Ying with his 5 divine generals. They all used secret techniques, pushing their speed to the maximum. The laws of wind even revolved around Ming Dong, seemingly transforming him into a wisp of wind as he advanced extremely quickly. However, they were only able to tail Song Ying from afar. They struggled to close the distance. That is the Azure Peng's movement technique. 9th Majesty, the Azure Peng is a renowned peak expert in the Saints' world. He's known for his speed. Since this person knows the Azure Peng's movement technique, it'll be very difficult for us to catch up to him, a divine general said from behind Ming Dong.
Really now?
Then let me see just how long he can maintain that speed, Ming Dong sneered. He used a secret technique. As his hands formed seals, a dazzling golden light suddenly appeared, condensing into the shape of a tower. As soon as the tower appeared, it gave off a tremendous presence. The supreme presence of the world seemed to circulate about the tower. Even though it was very hazy and blurry, it was enough to give people the impression that it could suppress the laws of the world. If Jian Chen was present, he would definitely be able to tell that the tower Ming Dong's secret technique conjured was mostly similar to the Anata Tower with a single glance. The reason why it was not completely the same was that the Anata Tower was just too damaged, making it impossible to make a detailed comparison. Moreover, the presences of the 2 towers completely differed. The Anata Tower in Jian Chen's hand seemed extremely ordinary. Apart from the fact that it was covered with slashes, there were no unique abnormalities about it. However, the tower Ming Dong condensed possessed a presence enough for the world to react to it. It shone with blinding light, making it an existence that no one could stare at directly. According to my 8th senior, this technique was created by my first senior sister when she saw the famed treasure of my master. I struggle to even use 1/10,000th of the technique's power with my current cultivation and against opponents. It's nowhere close to the other battle skills I know. However, this technique can punch through space and bypass any distances present. It just happens to be a perfect time to use it, Ming Dong said softly before pointing towards Tsang Ying from afar. After extending a finger, the figure of the Anata tower that had been conjured before him instantly vanished. It moved through space and overcame the limits created by distance, appearing behind Tsang Ying in a single instance. Tsang Ying could obviously sense the danger behind him, which made his expression change drastically. However, Ming Dong's secret technique was created with reference to the Anata tower, so even though its power was extremely limited in Ming Dong's hands, it still possessed some of the essence of the Anata tower, preventing Tsang Ying from dodging it. Bang! With a heavy thud, the figure of the tower struck Tsang Ying's back, forcing him to vomit a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured, and he slowed down. Tsang Ying's heart sank. He knew that he would struggle to maintain his advantage while being hunted down by the people behind him, so determination immediately flooded his face as he quickly flew towards the 8th floor. Many god kings currently gathered on the 8th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace. There were so many of them that it ranged over 10,000. There were even many supreme god kings around. Moreover, the number constantly increased because god kings would basically come down from the 9th floor or come up from the 7th floor at all times. As a result, over 80% of all the cultivators in the Neptunian Divine Palace had gathered on the 8th floor. All of them stood around where Jian Chen had fallen into the lava. Their eyes would shine brightly from time to time, almost to the point where they emitted visible streaks of light as they observed the churning lava below. At other times, they would close their eyes and carefully sense for something. It was like they were searching for something. Since the girl is protected by the power of the Neptunian Divine Palace, she must still be alive. Everyone, let's find a way to see if we can dive into the lava and search in there. That's right. The girl must be trapped in the lava. She won't be able to come up with her strength at the mere mortal realm. She needs our help. Although the lava is extremely terrifying, we have defensive god artifacts. If we all work together and push the might of the god artifacts to the limit, I think we can remain in the lava for a while. The little girl is tied to many important matters. We have to find her no matter what. We can't just lose her. Many powerful supreme god kings gathered in groups on the 8th floor. They had already banded together, and they were currently discussing with one another, preparing to dive into the lava. Chapter 2104. Colossal eruptions. Among all these groups of god kings, there were over a dozen that were the most powerful. Many powerful late god kings would be turned away immediately when they wanted to join these groups, believed to have no right to join. The group led by Jia Na was the most powerful group out of all of them. Not only were there various supreme god kings from the god king's throne gathered there, but there were even many people with god artifacts. Currently, 2 people sat in the air as they rested with their eyes closed in the group led by Jia Na. They seemed to be ignoring everything going on around them. The 2 of them were Gong Zhang and Bai Yi, who had attacked Jian Chen together. Now, Gong Zhang and Bai Yi had removed their disguises, exposing themselves before everyone. They did not care about getting recognized and subsequently being reported to Ming Dong for a great reward. Gong Zhang. Bai Yi, how are your wounds? A burly middle-aged man walked over as he glanced past Gong Zhang and Bai Yi. The middle-aged man was Jia Na. Perhaps there were not a lot of people who would recognize Jia Na from his appearance in the Neptunian Divine Palace, but over 90% of all the people in there would be familiar with his name. This was because Jia Na was an extremely powerful supreme god king on the god king's throne. He ranked within the top 100 as the 99th most powerful god king. It was truly a high ranking. Gong Zhang and Bai Yi opened their eyes and looked at Jia Na together. They became stern. With brother Jia Na's great soul extension pill, we've basically recovered from our injured souls. Although it'll still take a very long time before we make a complete recovery, it won't affect our strength too much. I, Gong Zhang, will never forget brother Jia Na's assistance today. If I get the opportunity in the future, I will definitely return the favor. Gong Zhang stood up and clasped his hands at Jia Na. Bai Yi stood up as well and clasped his fist towards Jia Na, saying similar things to him. If it were not for the god-tier Great Soul Extension pill that specialized in healing souls from Jiana, they would not have been able to recover to their current level. Jiana laughed aloud. Our sect has close ties with your solitary sword lineage, so a mere matter like this is not worth mentioning. Prepare yourselves, as we're about to start. I hope that everyone can pour their strength together and completely unleash the defensive power of the radiant bead of the rising sun. That way, we can last even longer in the lava, so it'll be more likely for us to find the girl. Very soon, Jiana gathered everyone and took out his god artifact, the radiant bead of the rising sun. He was prepared to utilize the god artifact with everyone's strength and dive into the lava. At the same time, many other groups began to move as well. Each group had a single defensive god artifact at the very least. They would use various methods to combine the powers of many people so that they could unleash the full power of the god artifact, which would protect them when they dove into the lava. However, at this moment, a powerful ripple of energy appeared in the distance. An azure figure appeared there, seemingly transformed into an azure pung. He moved extremely quickly as he fled desperately. There were 6 other figures that shone with the glow of laws behind him, pursuing him closely as they launched powerful attacks towards the fleeing person mercilessly. He's Ming Dong, and the person being pursued is a supreme god king. I think I remember the fleeing person as one of the people who took part in the encirclement against Jian Chen. I never thought he would be reduced to such a shape by Ming Dong. That's the Azure Peng's movement technique. Anyone who can use it definitely belongs to the Azure Peng King. I really wonder what Ming Dong's origins are, where he doesn't even fear the Azure Peng King. The Azure Peng King is renowned for his sensitivity. The eyes of a few god kings in the distance narrowed at the sight of this as they sighed in amazement. Boom! At this moment, a heavy sound suddenly rang out as over a dozen volcanoes in the surroundings erupted together. Terrifying lava formed over a dozen pillars of fire that plunged into the sky before falling down like rain. It engulfed the entire region, creating a storm of lava. The 8th floor was never stable. The battles between regular god kings was already enough to cause volcanoes to erupt, so all the god kings gathered in the area had to conceal their presences carefully. Ming Dong had now come pursuing Tsonging furiously with the divine generals, and he struck out recklessly. He unleashed his power that was on par with supreme god kings as destructive power formed ripples of energy. This immediately disrupted the peace there, causing the volcanoes in the surroundings to erupt. Oh no! Dutch! The expressions of all the god kings around changed when they saw the raining lava. They scattered in the surroundings as quickly as they could. Even the supreme god kings on the god king's throne could not help but become frantic as they tried to avoid the lava to the best of their ability. Even a droplet of lava would be far more than a supreme god king could endure, as it would be thousands of times hotter than the center of the sun. Now, Ming Dong had already caught up with Tsonging. His eyes were cold as he radiated with killing intent. He swung his sword towards Tsonging with the powers of destruction, causing Tsonging to spurt blood constantly. The azure pung scales that protected him dimmed in color. Ming Dong's strike possessed extravagant power. Terrifying ripples of energy swept out like storms, causing even more volcanoes to erupt instantaneously. Boom! 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 Immediately, the sounds rang out without any signs of stopping. All the volcanoes within hundreds of thousands of kilometers of Ming Dong emerged from dormancy and erupted one after another. Pillars of lava shot into the sky consecutively like roaring, furious dragons, turning into a rain of lava. It fell with many fire divine crystals and terrifying heat. The entire 8th floor shook violently as the fire-attributed energy in the surroundings became extremely violent. Even the sea of lava below everyone tossed and turned. Arg! In that instance, miserable cries rang out in the surroundings. Under the torrential lava rain, many god kings failed to dodge in time and were struck by the lava. Not only did they catch on fire, but holes were melted through their bodies as well. Oh no, there are too many people gathered here. Even with your presence suppressed, it forms a pressure that affects this place. It silently destroyed the stability of the volcanoes, causing them to erupt with an intensity that has never before seen. Quick! Stop! Stop fighting! You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.